All right, welcome on in to another episode of DCU Daily, a special Sunday edition of DCU Daily. There's a reason why we got a special Sunday edition. Of course, this is Superman weekend after all, so we're going to talk about Superman in spoiler fashion today. We did have a spoiler chat on Friday with John and Fiona, so today we have Liz on with us to do that, so we've got a lot of that to get into. Beyond that, we're going to get into what I think, and maybe Liz agrees, we'll get to her opinion when we get to the quick hits, is the best Fantastic Four trailer to date. I don't know why they sat on it for this long, but we'll get into that. And then we, of course, have to celebrate the belated birthday of Rachel Brosnahan, our Lois Lane. She celebrated her birthday yesterday. And we have a bunch more to get into on the box office side, because we have our very first set of box office results for Superman. We don't have what they call actuals, because this is still Sunday when we're doing the show, so we'll get into those. And beyond that, I'm sure there'll be a lot more spoiler stuff we'll dive into. So if you are watching live, thank you for joining us live. If you guys get to check us out after the fact, and of course, you know, we're here 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, like on a Sunday. But to do that and to get into all of that and so much more, let's dive into that intro that we like, the DCU Daily intro today, and then get the show started.
It's another project that's been blessed from the beginning.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see chorus.
Right there.
Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
Now you want to get nuts?
Let's get nuts. Here we go.
Victory mine. Ask me how am I doing? I'm telling you, really, I'm doing sublime. I never wait in a stewardess line. I just go do it. I'm moving my time. Really had nothing to do with it. How am I moving? I'm moving like you want to shine. Follow my lead. Don't listen to lies. I had to put me all in the line. That's why I know that victory's mine.
I prefer Jared Leto.
Hunka, hunka.
All right. Okay. So, as the intro has a lot of Superman in it, so does today's show. The whole week was all about Superman. This upcoming week is probably going to be all about Superman. John will be back with us tomorrow, but today on this very special Sunday edition with me, I've got Liz. How are you doing today, Liz? How was your weekend? I know you actually just came out of another Superman viewing earlier.
Did.
So
I did.
Go ahead. Tell us what you thought about it. Let's just dive into it, shall we? I just want to, hear from you. Again, now it's all spoiler chat today, so if anybody's watching, we're going to get into the spoilers. But before we do, Liz, how was your day? How did you like the second viewing of the movie Superman?
Yeah. Hey, gang. Sorry, the setup looks a little differently today. We were trying to do the best we can to make sure that I didn't lose my feed like I have been the last couple of times that I've been on. So I appreciate Dan working everything out, but I do apologize. I want to acknowledge that it does look a little different today. I saw it in Dolby this time around. I saw it in IMAX first, along with Dan and John for the special early screening. I still love it. It's still a 9 in my heart. I'm really happy that I saw it again. I saw it with a fresh new audience that had never seen it before. And it was kind of fun to feel like I was holding a secret that I saw it before them, but it was a good time. Everybody seemed to really enjoy it. But when walking out of the theater, I had heard some conversation of other members of the audience, and they kind of had some issues, the same issues that John and I had with it. So I thought that was really interesting. I was like, okay, we're not the only ones that feel this way. So, but we'll get into all of it. But I'm so glad I got to see it again. I keep telling everybody they need to check it out. Stop going to Jurassic World, you guys. Cut it. Stop giving them your money. Go spend your money on Superman. It's a much better time. You'll like it a lot more. And hopefully you'll tell your friends and they'll check it out as well.
Yeah. I did want to mention, I think there's some kind of weird trial audio that's popping in. We're having some kind of an audio issue that I can't seem to figure out what it is.
Weird. It just says trial. That's what I see. That Fiona's comment here.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that any better? But we'll see. If this still keeps happening, then we'll have Liz join in through StreamYard the traditional way, and we'll flip the script and get back to the way we usually do it. But we got Fiona in the chat. We've got M8 in the chat. Hello, everybody. And then Yush is here and Glimmercast. Do let us know if you guys are still hearing that,
let us know if you're hearing funky, because everything's good on my end. And
yeah, because it's because the way the audio is currently, because of the new setup, I'm not able to monitor it the way that I usually do. So if you guys are hearing this issue, do let me know. Then we'll try to adjust for it. So, but yeah, we have to talk about. So, Liz, you mentioned that obviously you saw Superman again for the second time today. Let me start by asking you just your overall thoughts on a second viewing of Superman. I know you just gave us a bit of a preview, but do you think this movie gets better on second watch? Do you feel like you want to go see it a third time? Because, I mean, I know there's new movies coming out next weekend, but I don't know if you are particularly excited about any of them. Would you just go watch Superman again? And feel free to obviously dive into spoilers. So again, spoiler warning for everybody watching. Yeah, but go ahead, Liz.
I will happily see it again. I don't know if I'll get the chance just timing wise to see it in theaters again. There is other things obviously coming out that I want to see as well, but I'm definitely happy that I saw it. And as I said last week, I prefer Dolby over IMAX, so I did want to kind of see if I would feel differently one way or the other seeing it in a different format. I do agree that IMAX is probably the best way to see it. It was shot that way. It was presented that way to us initially in the preview. So even though I liked it just the same, I feel just visually IMAX is where it's at, the big huge screen format. Even though Dolby's a wonderful and very comfortable experience, I think IMAX is the way to go if you have to choose between the two. But no, I you guys, I have a lot of thoughts. I don't know where to begin, quite frankly. I loved all of the cast. The cast has the best chemistry of the cast that I've seen in a long time. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I think we're still having that issue, and I think we might have to switch back to like you coming in directly into StreamYard. Okay. So because I'll hold it down while you do that. It might be I don't know if it's on your end or if it's on my end or what the case might be, but
yeah.
Great. Sorry, guys. We were trying something different.
It's gonna go well for us too.
But yeah, so Liz, if you want to jump back in through the StreamYard link like you usually would, I'm gonna switch over and we'll keep the conversation going. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, let's. Is that any better now that I've unplugged from the board? Let's ask that question. Can you guys hear me?
Let me check. By the way, it's Curtis Jones saying, saw it yesterday, loved it. Comic come to life. Charming dynamic, super movie. So thank you for that review, Curtis. Thank you for tuning in. Let's take.
Yeah.
Nope, it's still saying it, apparently.
Okay. All right. Let me pop in. I'm going to pop out of this and pop into that. I'll see you in a bit.
All right. Okay. Liz will be right back. Let me see if I can switch over. You might see me in a couple of places. This might get weird. Hold on. Oh, yep. Bye. Ooh. Fancy. I'm just gonna hold on. Now I have to change my audio source because that's what's probably gonna fix the problem. Can you guys hear me? Yes. Okay, there we go. Now there's just two of me. Isn't that wonderful? Hi. We'll just keep it that way. We'll just keep it that way. I think we fixed the problem. Let me bring Liz back in though. Liz is right here. There you go.
Hey, well, that's fun.
Now I think the audio problem has been fixed, but now you're stuck with two of me. So
no good deed.
Isn't this fantastic?
We tried so hard, but here we are. Oh well.
Sorry about that, guys. We were trying to work around an issue that basically the platform that we use, StreamYard, has, as many I'm sure you guys have some software like Adobe and stuff. They'll run an update and then they'll have problems with it, and then we're like, can we fix the problem? And until the problem's fixed, we can have to like work with the problem. So I'm gonna take the second camera out, but before I do, hey, there's two of me. Isn't that nice? Sorry, this is distracting. There we go. Now there's only one of me, but you can still hear me, so that's good. See, it's all possible.
Swear.
Wonderful, the wonders of technology, by the way.
The things we do for you people. Just kidding.
We've got Frankie in the chat. Frankie, let us know. Have you seen the movie more than once? We've got Glimmer cast in there as well. I mentioned earlier, Yash was in the chat. We got M8 joining us live. So let's.
Fiona
Yeah,
got
it
the
was my
clone.
it was my clone. That's what was causing the problem. I mean, I'm glad that we got rid of that. And by the way, anybody in the chat right now, let us know how many times have you seen Superman, because we want to hear from you. Today's a spoiler review, so we're going to get into all the deep spoilers, and
We're
of course
spoiling it.
we talked about it in spoiler fashion on Friday. So we did have a conversation with John and Fiona on the show. Fiona's in the chat right now. John, I'm sure, is taking the day off to himself because he's gonna be here all week long, as I usually am too. But okay, so Liz, we have to talk about the movie. I'm just gonna reset a little bit. Let me see if I can find the right graphic, because that's the key here. Superman spoiler reviews. There we go. Okay, so we're here for an open spoiler discussion of Superman. And after a few audio issues at the beginning of the show, we finally got things straightened out. So Liz, you just saw the movie again for the second time today. I know you and I just talked about it like before the show started, and I'm really curious how you think the movie has changed for you, and also, do you still have the same problems you had the first time around watching it on Tuesday with the Amazon Prime early screenings?
Yeah. I still love it. It's still a 9 in my heart, an 8.5 for the internet. Just because I know y'all are cranky about ratings, but for me, I think the pacing was a little better the second time around, but that's also because I knew what I was getting. I knew everything that was coming shot for shot. So the pacing I didn't really have a problem with the second time. But when you're seeing it as a first time viewer, I can understand it's a little off-putting. Again, the only real issue, well, the two issues that I had, and I know Fiona felt this way and John certainly did as well, was Lex Luthor killing that innocent gentleman, Molly, in his pocket world. I agree. It should have been, the shot should have been handled differently. You should have just been seeing Lex and then the gun, you hearing the gun go off in the background, and then maybe seeing, Molly, crumble to the floor or something like that. But I don't think visually seeing him shoot somebody in the head was really the right move. We know Lex is a bad guy. You didn't even just a shot on Lex and hearing the gun go off is all you really needed to kind of cement the fact that he's a bad guy. I just think if you're trying to certainly make it more of a family friendly, more, palatable film for all audiences, that could have been handled differently. I also had a real problem, and as I said, the audience, as they were leaving this second showing, felt the same way. I audibly heard someone walking behind me saying, wait a minute, so his parents' message was real? And it's a bummer, right? So while we understand that this isn't an origin story, Superman's well established in this world now, to so drastically change his relationship with his biological parents in that way is kind of shocking and actually unnecessary, in my opinion. But at the same time, and I've said this to Dan and John off camera as well, I also kind of understand where James Gunn is coming from. They are aliens. They are in a completely different world. They have a completely different culture, a completely different heritage. While they were sending their son to this planet where they knew he'd be okay, they didn't know what the people were like, what the culture was like, how he was going to fit in, assimilate, what have you. So they said to him, hey, you run into any problems? Take care of it. You're the superior being here. Make sure that, and again, they were coming from a place of, we know our planet is dying. So make sure you spread your seed around and try to rebuild Krypton's population, which again, not the best way to go about things by saying, hey, son, get a harem together. But again, I get it, but there was no explanation. There was no follow-up. It was just simply, oh, your parents are scumbags. All Kryptonians are dickheads and philanderers and just trying to sling their dicks around. And we just left it there and we just accepted that. And then Superman essentially turned his back on them at the end. And it was a bummer. It was a real bummer because, again, you see his initial relationship with his parents. Their message was very comforting to him. He cherished it, and that was his last connection to Krypton. and then for it to be turned on its head so dramatically, and like I said, now Superman's just cut them out completely. I kind of left being like, okay, let's see, Guardians of the Galaxy, maybe he was your dad, but he wasn't your father, and now this. I'm
And
like,
Mary Poppins, y'all. I thought that was
I
fantastic.
I
That was
literally
so well
Googled
done.
whether or not James
It
and
was
Sean Gunn were adopted, because I'm like, what is his deal with adoption versus what is with like
that's
childhood
been a
trauma
strength
or
of
something?
his. Yeah.
Like, it's really interesting to me that this kind of continues to be a theme where like your foster parents are better than your biological parents,
Well,
which
I think
does
it's
happen.
more.
That is a thing,
Yeah, it's more even
but it
just
was
like
very
found
strange to me.
family. Like, is the
Yeah.
family that you choose versus the family that you were born into,
Which
kind of
again
thing.
is fine, but
You know?
I really don't think it was necessary.
No,
Yes,
not
it
for
was important
Superman.
for this
Yeah.
film to create that controversy and to essentially turn people against Superman for a hot second, but at the end it could have been revealed that it was a doctored video, and I don't think any of us would have been upset about that. We're all more upset about the fact that his parents now have a completely different narrative than what we've known for 60, 70, 80 years. So that's kind of a bummer. Again, I'm sure that might be canon in some other version of Superman's story.
There
um
are iterations. I think the John Byrne run John was mentioning,
yeah,
on Friday. There's some
yeah,
comic book
but to do it
precedents
but to
there. Yeah.
to do it like that for like an unsuspecting audience who is just going in to just see a film, is
Yeah.
certainly the majority of us have not read all of those comics. It was a super, super big bummer. As I said, my fellow
Yeah.
audience members felt the same way about that.
It was.
I
I legit
also,
remember people gasped at it a little bit, like
yeah,
in our
I
theater
certainly
when we
did.
watched it
Yeah.
on Tuesday. And I will say though, like the fun part at the end with like mentioning the Sean Gunn cameo. I think it was like
Yes.
finally you don't have to be a liberal
So good.
conservative to agree that Lex is a menace or
Lex
maniac or
sucks.
something.
Yeah, Lex Luthor
Sucks.
sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Now,
it's
I,
great.
I was like getting excited for that part because I knew it was coming. I also thought it was really interesting that James, excuse me, especially because in previous iterations, in previous Superman films, everyone knows that quote, "Do you bleed?" That, oh,
You bleed. Yeah,
Superman's
it's
blood is actually the key to get into the Fortress of Solitude.
which was
And
the
he kind
case
of took it,
in Man of Steel as well, right? Like it was coded
right.
to his DNA. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, and so he kind of took a page actually from one of the X-Men films where that's what they had done. They had picked up pieces of DNA that were scattered around, after a fight, and used it against them, and that's what we did here. So Lex said, "Oh, I finally found a strand of your hair after a big battle, and I was able to clone you, and now I've got this imp
Which
running around with your face." And
let me
I thought
ask you
that
a
was kind of
question though.
interesting. Yeah.
Because okay, so now that you bring this, because this came up during the review on Friday, right? So when
Hmm.
they're going into like this happens in the first act of the movie, more or less, where they're going to the Fortress of Solitude,
Yes.
and we find out that Lex, because at the very beginning
Lex
of the movie,
figured
the
out a way in,
engineers,
right?
right, the engineer's looking for it, and obviously she sees like the thing just kind of goes into the ground, and
Right.
disappears, and she's like, "We got to figure this out." Lex is like, "It's okay, like you know where it
Yeah,
is, right?
I got
Like
it.
we just drop a pin and send me text it to me on iMessage, and then I'll figure it out later." That's not what he
Right.
said, but I'm sure that was kind of the intention.
Implied, right?
But it was implied, and the engineer's like, "I could do more." It's like, which by the way, I just love that Maria Gabrielle de Fria really did play it like it's she felt like she could do more, and she really like was
I
infatuated with Lex in a way.
Yeah,
But
I
getting which we could talk, but just to kind of address this point because I
yeah,
wanted to ask you a question about the whole thing, like with Ultraman, right? Because you find out later in the movie who is behind the mask. But
yeah.
as somebody who, like Fiona, for example, was talking about, she didn't know like what the comic book precedence behind Ultraman is. You have a little more knowledge because you've been studying up, and obviously being on the show, John and I have been talking about this for the past year.
Well,
So
and it's
you have
something
some
that comes up
context.
often. It's something that comes
Yeah,
up often, right? Star
but
Trek has their good side, their evil side. I
yeah.
knew, and we've had that in the Christopher Reeve iterations.
Mhm.
I knew that there was an evil Superman, a bad Superman. And like I said last week in our non-spoiler review, I had no idea who Ultraman was until just before he took the mask off. And then it
Right.
clicked to me that I was like, oh, that's him. Because again, how else is Lex getting in? How does he have, access to the fortress? Because he must have a piece of Clark Kent. So for most people, I'm sure it was very shocking. For me, like I said, it clicked. It was shocking still, but it did click for me just before the reveal, and I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So, but essentially, what I wanted to ask you before the reveal in this sequence here,
yeah,
because Fiona, for example, was like she didn't know, like she couldn't figure out like why in this scene, like Lex was able to get in just on first watch, whereas you know,
he's
like
walking in with
when we were watching the movie, I think John even mentioned it didn't click to him in the beginning that the reason why Lex got in was because Ultraman basically had Superman's DNA.
Right.
Did you could in your mind when you saw that first sequence happen in this the first 15 minutes of the movie, where you were like, okay, so Ultraman is there, so that's probably why Lex is able to like summon this fortress to come up out of the ground.
I don't know that I clicked it with Ultraman at all.
Yeah.
I think I more thought that maybe again Lex had a vial of his blood or had a strand of his hair in his pocket or something.
Right.
A piece of tissue fiber or something. I really didn't think much of it at all because especially seeing it the first time around because everything was fresh to me. So it was just more like, oh, he's figured out a workaround, whatever. But you never see him with a remote, like opening a garage door or anything like that. So I guess it does beg the question, how is this possible? But it never, like I said, it never made the connection to me that Ultraman would be involved in any way.
Yeah.
I think especially because the engineer couldn't get in. So why would we think that Ultraman was the key? You know what I mean? If anything, I thought it was something that Lex was doing or had on him.
I see what you mean. Okay, so but then obviously later in the movie it's explained. Do you feel like, because one of the things that people have been saying, that even I think Fiona pointed out, and then John too, it was like they had a lot of explaining to do in this movie. Like we got more exposition in different parts of the movie where like through dialogue as opposed to just watching the events play out. Do you feel like the movie had that show don't tell issue across, or did you not feel that at all? Like did this movie feel like it was giving you the information you needed, like whether it was plot twists or whatever, and you didn't feel like characters were telling you the plot?
Well, and again, because it's not an origin story, right? So their job is to not explain shit and break it down for you as if you're seeing this for the first time. James Gunn was
the opening crawl does that for you. Like it's
right. Like
it's all you need.
He was very adamant that this is a world that already exists, is already established. These relationships are already established, and we're basically walking into the middle of a storyline already. And I think he accomplished that very well. Lex knows Superman. Superman knows Lex. They've had issues. At one point somebody had said, oh, Lex has been studying Superman for years, which I thought was a weird comment because in the very beginning when they kind of explained that they break down the timeline of Superman in this world, Superman's only made himself known for the past 3 years. So for them to like make it sound like Lex has been studying him for like over a decade, I thought was kind of a weird.
Which it's like I felt like that was the implication, even though I'm like, okay, either Lex studies up really fast because he's only really had a few years to do this.
Right.
But it just
because realistically, how many battles is Superman getting into within a year?
Because I will say though, in the marketing build-up, we found out that in one of the Daily Planet articles that they posted, or like whether it was a set prop or some kind of like marketing thing, or the newsletter that they had, like apparently Superman has already fought a Metallo, which is another Superman villain in the comics. So I guess he's one of the ones that he is. So I suppose he's had a few big battles, which is how Lex has figured out all the moves that was basically he was like the coach of an NFL team, giving out play designations, calling like
or
if he was
like battleship moves like, or something.
All right, the 38L like hot, and then Ultraman
and
punches
again, the
Superman
fact,
in the sky.
And the fact that the majority of the times Superman came out was because it was engineered by Lex to draw him out. So that would also lead me to believe that, okay, if he's only been around for 3 years, maybe after a year, him and his intentions, was worried that he was going to, turn out to be this godly figure that was going to lord over us and enslave us. Then sure, he came up with this plot of the only way that I can study him is if I manufacture chaos and if I manufacture these monsters, these machines, these problems. So maybe that's what he's been doing for the past year and a half, something like that. But again, it was just kind of a one-off comment that I was like, that doesn't really track. But again, almost every situation that came up in this film that Superman found himself in was manufactured by Lex to begin with. So
which is similar to what we saw in BVS as well, right? Because in that, like, Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor seems to be pulling the strings the whole time. Although in a very different, I mean, context was different. This particular Lex doesn't blow up the Capitol in DC and all that stuff.
Right.
But so, you know, as far as maniacal and diabolical and, you know, which one you prefer, I think to each their own. I personally think this version of Lex Luthor felt like he was very campy, comic booky, yet at the same time an absolute that you actually wouldn't want to make enemies with if he was in our world. Which the whole idea is this world is very elevated. It's not our world. It's like a step away from our world. It's very much, you know, a comic book universe that we are watching on screen. Right. So they don't really, you know, they don't play around with that idea. They're firmly established that this is not like the MCU, which has always felt like it's the MCU is always meant to be. What if the superheroes existed in our world? Like you watch Daredevil, they're in New York City, like, and stuff. In this world, you don't have a New York City. You have Gotham City. You have Metropolis, and which is I think in Delaware and continuity. But anyway, King Dingalings, which is again a fantastic.
And I do want to address this question right here because
like the weakness of Superman.
This really bums me out, though. This really bums me out. Everybody assumes that why would Superman just go in there and just straight up dominate? He's not weak. He's thoughtful. He's not in there trying to kill anyone, trying to just go ahead and rip heads off and like ask questions later. He's very thoughtful in what he does and how he approaches everything, as he should be, because again, he understands that he is the superior being and he's not trying to lord over people. He's not trying to force himself into situations. So no, he's not really he's getting beat up by the engineer. He's getting beat up by the Hammer of Baravia. He's getting beat up by Ultraman. He's going toe to toe with the monster. But ultimately, he even says when fighting the monster, fighting the kaiju, I don't want to kill it. I want to humanely put it down just so we can get it out of here.
And he's frustrated when the Justice Gang are like reckless about it.
And they're
because it causes more damage, and they don't
exactly.
And they don't seem to care that it's causing all that damage.
And unfortunately for society, that means Superman is weak. He's not weak. He's trying to be the best of humanity. He's trying to give everybody a second chance. Like, what the kaiju's here because it's confused and it's not a part of this world, so it's just losing its shit. And Superman gets it. He's like, let's just get this guy out of here so everybody's cool. And unfortunately, that's not the way it ended for the poor monster. But again, yes, Ultraman was the only one. Ultraman, aka his clone, was the only one that could actually do any real damage to him. But also, he wasn't trying to take that guy down either. He was trying to kind of get him over onto his side. Like, hey, you don't have to do this. Like, you're not his puppet. He said the same thing to the engineer. There's still time. You can get yourself out of this. We can help you. He just wants everybody to stop beating the shit out of each other, essentially. And to me, that's not weak. That's leadership. That's trying to set a positive example. That's trying to put, good shit out into the world. But hey, you want to call him weak for not just cracking skulls? Fine. I just think that's really shitty. Also, I want to say this scene, classic James Gunn, very reminiscent of the prison scenes in the two different Guardians of the Galaxy, just controlled chaos. And I love every second of it. Last week, a couple of people had asked us what our favorite fights were. I enjoyed every single fight scene. I did say that I felt the final scene with the battle with Ultraman was a little long. I don't know if I still feel that way. I still think the fact that at one point the engineer was attached to Superman, so he just swung her around and actually like hit Ultraman with her a couple of times was hilarious. Mr. Terrific's fight scene when he got to Lex's weird military compound was also some quality cinema if I've ever seen it. Holy shit. That you're basically watching the fight from the perspective of another onlooker, which was really cool. But I mean, I can go on and on and on. I don't know if you have any other questions, Dan, but
yeah,
also for me, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say we've been sort of bouncing around a little bit, and I know there's a lot to get into, but some of the big things. I just wanted to bring in some of the comments from the folks. Troy, the Great James, is here saying you saw Superman. How was it? I mean, Fiona had her opinions on Friday. John kind of said that it played. Fiona's only seen it once. I've only still seen it once because I've just, between doing these shows and trying to get some sleep, I couldn't fit in a second viewing. Maybe tonight after the show I can do it. But for me, the movie has, the more I sit with some of it, I feel like I've liked more of the positive aspects of it. I still think there were some pacing issues, but now, Liz, like John, you have seen it twice, and
Yeah.
did you feel the pacing issues more or less? Do you still feel like the editing was choppy? Like, I think for me, one of the things that I still look back at and think, it's not like it was, the movie wasn't messy, or I think the word I've been using is scattered in the second act.
I think just like
But
this
did you
scene,
feel
it was
that?
controlled chaos. I think that's what it was. It was controlled chaos. So they were throwing a lot at us. And again, some of these things, these characters in particular, were things that a lot of audiences are seeing for the very first time and experiencing for the very first time. So it can seem chaotic because it's a lot to digest. But as I said in the beginning, I felt the pacing was better seeing it the second time around, but that's only because I knew what was coming. So I think, take it for that. I think it is worth a second watch if you're somebody who didn't necessarily like it the first time, or had issues with it the first time. Like I said, as far as the story was concerned, I still did have those same issues the second time around. That really didn't change my perspective much, because like I said, I think those two main things that I brought up could have been changed and wouldn't have affected anything one way or the other. But as far as a movie as a whole, as a cast as a whole, I love this cast together. The chemistry was unbelievable, from the villains to the heroes to the everyday average Joe citizens. It was just fantastic from start to finish. The banter, the connection with one another, I'm here for it. I love it. And I really hope that we do get a Mr. Terrific spinoff. I do hope that we get a Jimmy Olsen spinoff, because he's got some shit going on behind the scenes we didn't know about.
I mean, Jimmy's got game, right? We need to make that a shirt. Jimmy got game. And then I mean, because we're not talking about Jimmy Butler of he's in the Golden State Warriors now, but we're talking about Jimmy Olsen. Jimmy Olsen got game, and I feel like that needs to be some. We should, when we launch the merch store, whatever we do, I'm like, that needs to be a thing in there.
Percent.
Okay, so I'm trying to collecting our thoughts. Some of the big things we've already talked about, but actually, since we are talking about Jimmy, what did you think about the whole storyline? Because I know again, there's people out there who love the movie, and the vast majority of the people love the film, or rightfully so. But there are a few people who are pointing out some things, such as the whole thing of, we're
the Watcher has seen it 5 times. That's fantastic.
I'm actually going to put up a poll in the chat so you guys can tell us how many times you've seen it. But for example, one of the critiques I've seen, which seems pretty extraneous because I didn't think that was a problem. I thought that was one of the genius parts of the movie was that Miss Tessmacher, who apparently, I don't get it. I don't get how Jimmy Olsen does this, because just like Lois saying, she's like,
the man.
Okay, forget but how do you do it? How do you do this? This girl's the girls are just fawning over him, including Miss Tessmacher. And the way she gets him all this scoop into Lex's evil plan is through selfies, which throughout the movie, and even the marketing, we were she just seems to just be there, and she's just completely unaware, right? And she felt like this very stereotype character, but then in the movie,
turns out she's a genius, and she was coming with receipts the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess I do want to ask you, what did you think about how they approached that? Because while there are some aspects of this movie that I still feel were sloppily written, I think as far as a really amazing setup with an even better payoff that actually, from a journalistic standpoint, in terms of highlighting the Daily Planet crew, because I did feel like Perry White, didn't get as much screen time, and I would have liked to see even more Steve Lombard, why don't I have a seat? And he's sliding back and forth in the T-craft.
I felt that way about everybody. Yeah, but I felt that way about everybody, and I like Figure Drawing's comment here. Jimmy has Pete Davidson qualities. They all want to try him out. I mean, some people got it like that. Good for you, Jimmy. Good for you, Pete. I felt that way about everybody because, as I've said, I do not read comic books. I watched a couple of the TV shows. I watched the majority of the films. So all of these characters were essentially brand new to me. And starting in the middle of an established storyline already, these relationships have already been formed. I want to know more about everybody. So yeah, I'd like to know more about the folks of the Daily Planet. I'd like to know more about the folks in the Justice Gang, name pending. I want to know more about everybody, essentially. Again, the only people that I really have an understanding and a grasp of is Superman, Clark Kent, Lois Lane, and Ma and Pa Kent, essentially, and Lex Luthor a little bit as well. So I didn't, but I did love the fact that Miss Tessmacher was essentially an influencer, like, you know, like a modern day influencer like we have today. But again, whether or not she even realized what she was doing, she was keeping receipts the entire time, but making it look like she was just this vapid, narcissistic person that was just living in the moment and bragging about her access to this multi-billionaire. So I thought it was brilliantly put together.
Yeah,
I really liked that a lot.
I'm glad they freed everybody from that pocket dimension. You know, all the ex-girlfriends of Lex Luthor before.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, it seemed like some people were in there for a long time. I'm like, she only had to be in there for a little bit. Not maybe the best thing for Jimmy, considering that. Well, I guess by the end of the movie, it feels like the way they play it off, like the way
I think he appreciated her.
Yeah,
and I think
Skylar
he realized
kind of get
what she really was doing.
Yeah, he's into it. It's just great. Yeah, I do think The Watcher has everyone beat. The Watcher had seen this movie 2 times before some of us saw it once, and now he's seen it 5. Yeah, The Watcher is the resident lore keeper. Thank you, Watcher, for answering questions in the chat, because we're trying to get everybody's questions answered. But we appreciate the help. In the comics, Jimmy has had a lot of girlfriends in the last 75 plus years, says King Dingaling. I just love saying that username. Gunn just threw them all at him in this one movie. Yeah, because we remember the other day, I don't know if you were on the show, Liz, but there was this behind the scenes video from the Daily Planet newsletter where Jimmy's like, I got a photo on his desk at work where apparently he's just doing one of these, and he's got like 2 girls, one on each arm. And I'm like, okay, so not only is that a situation, then there's like 2 interns in the office batting eyes at him, and then Miss Tessmacher is also well up here. She's like, like get ready to get hitched with this guy. It's like, we're gonna spend the rest of our lives together and all that. I'm like, okay, this Jimmy, I don't know if he can hold what he can. I don't know if he's gonna be happy holding it down with just one chick. But
no,
since we are talking about Jimmy, let's continue the conversation on that front, because I know there were talks and just so far rumblings within the industry. This isn't coming to us from James Gunn directly, but it does say there was a report in the Washington, I keep saying Washington, it's the Wall Street Journal, where they mentioned that one of the spinoffs, one of several spinoffs that James Gunn is considering, is a Jimmy Olsen show. Would you watch that show, Liz? And then if there was a Jimmy Olsen spinoff, what would you want to see in that show?
I would, and I think if it was a true Jimmy Olsen spinoff, it would literally just be a day in the life of Jimmy, right? So he's working at the Daily Planet. Chaos is going on outside, and they're trying to get information, and so we'll hear little snippets here and there of the goings on of Superman, of the Justice Gang, things of that nature. But it will solely still be him from his perspective, from his reporter desk, and then maybe his nightlife activities. This gal he met online, and he's going to check out Miss Tessmacher, who he's trying to dodge everywhere he goes. Things like that. I like things that are really subtle in that way. So you're just focusing on the average Joe. Meanwhile, there's, Superman's just out there defeating a kaiju, for the 20th time this month, whatever. Like, it's just old hat. Also, just along with that, one of my favorite scenes, and it's very James Gunn. I brought this up last week as well, just because it was a part of the trailer. So we already knew it wasn't really a spoiler. But they were, Superman returns after finding out his parents, the second half of the message. He's really distraught. Crypto's gone. He's looking for Crypto. He comes back to Clark Kent's apartment. Lois Lane is there. Meanwhile, the Justice Gang are fighting this alien imp that's just off in a couple miles down the street.
It's from the first Superman photo they released, and we were thinking, oh my God, what's significant?
Right.
Like, it's going to be some huge part of the movie. And then, in the movie is just like background for the, Rachel and David having this really heart-to-heart. Because in the scenes leading up to that moment, it felt like that relationship was over. Like, he's walked out on her. They had like a couple of dead-end conversations, like including that big interview that started off well, but really goes downhill fast because you can see how different the two people. They're different from each other, but also in a way that kind of like it creates friction. It creates fire.
And they view
clearly.
things from different sides too.
Yeah.
Where he's coming in feeling very innocent about everything that he does, feeling that there really shouldn't be any consequences from his actions because he's coming from a good place, whereas she's coming from the sense of like no, dude, like there are weights and measures, and there's legal red tape, and you can't just go off half cocked and make your own decisions. You have to kind of bring other people in and work as a team with the various governments that you're going to liberate, according to him. So yeah, I really like that perspective. But again, for me, this was just James Gunn further, that this is an already established universe. These people, this is old hat, right? So if superheroes really were a part of our world, stuff like this would happen on a regular basis, and we would just have to go about living our lives because there's nothing we could do about it. We can't avoid it. We certainly don't want to get in the fray. So, oh, look, an alien imp landed here. Oh, look, a kaiju was, dropped in the middle of Central Park last night and now grew, to 20 stories high. This is just there every day. So the fact that they're having a normal conversation and at one point Lois says like, oh, do you need to be out there helping them out? He's like, nah, they've got it. I was looking for the dog. I love that.
It was an interdimensional imp.
I just love it. I think it's classic James Gunn. And again, it's all very thoughtful. As much as we harped on the pacing and as much as we felt that, again, that it was kind of a controlled chaos, that is James Gunn. That's how he operates. That's how he works. That's how he writes. And when you really look at it as a whole, that it makes perfect sense. And I just dig it.
No, absolutely. It's a bit jarring at the beginning, right? Because we're all used to having certain expectations for how a cinematic universe starts, right? Like we've got new names in the chat today, even like Adrian, for example, mentioning that this movie comes across better and it grows on you the more you watch it. Which to me, I still feel like having not seen it twice, I feel like I'm gonna have that benefit once I do see it a second time, because like even with the Batman, when I saw that, I had a relatively negative reaction, and now I love it as one of my favorite Batman movies and favorite superhero movies. So. And then John was explaining on Friday, it felt like All-Star Superman, like it's got a vignette format to it where you sort of, which I don't know if that's necessarily true in the strictest sense, because there is still more of a through line, but it does feel, maybe it gets into vignettes in the second act. I don't know, maybe there's a lot going. I will probably have a better way to describe that once I see it again. But there's all kinds of ideas you guys have for what they could do in the Jimmy Show. I think we're actually gonna do a whole segment focused on that. Adrian giving it an A. We have the cinema score A-, which is basically people walking out of the theater giving it a rating. But we are getting some questions in the chat, so let me see if I can bring those in. Let's see. The Watcher asking us, does anyone have a favorite line from the film? Mine was, kindness is the new punk rock, Superman, which they've been mentioning and talking about in the promotional tour, and I think very much goes in line with what James Gunn thinks of with regards to Superman and the idea that, he believes in kindness in a world that believes kindness is old-fashioned, which clearly, is not just a reference to the world of the DCU that Superman is a part of, which again is a few steps removed from our world. It's not meant to be a substitute for our world, but it's also true for the world we live in, right? The idea that kindness is punk rock nowadays. It's a bit rebellious. It's like, and yet I think this movie works because I kept saying, even in the scenes when the movie didn't work for me, when David Cornsweet was on screen, whether it was as Superman or as Clark Kent or as Kal-El, he carried it through all the way through. I feel like the only times that I felt the movie wasn't working and there were no redeeming qualities, which was very few moments, was when Clark Kent or when David Cornsweet was not on screen. He feels like the perfect fit for this. But to answer the question from the Watcher, Liz, what was your favorite line in the movie?
Anything Mr. Terrific had to say, pretty much anything Guy Gardner had to say either. Guy Gardner shows up at the second battle of Baravia, and he looks at the kid who's calling for Superman, and he's like, hey kid, sorry, Superman couldn't make it, but you got an upgrade. You know what I mean? Like, it's just I just love that they are they are who they are. They own who they are. You know, Mr. Terrific again coming in to close the I don't know what you want to call it, the gap, the void, what have you.
The
And
portal.
you know, the guy's like, yeah, and the guy's like, oh, the rift, excuse me. And the guy's like, oh, I can help you. And he's like, I don't need your help. I'm Mr. Terrific. Like, get out of here. You know what I mean? Or like, hey, you brought that dog, man. You know, I just all of it. You know, even, you know, again, even Superman talking about crypto, how it's a foster situation, and you know, the robots talking about how the dog's not controllable. But then Superman kind of leans into the chaos of that is crypto too, and says, hey man, like, go get that toy, you know. And he's figured out how he can work with everyone and utilize all of their individual strengths to accomplish the goals at the end of the day. So I again, I know I kept saying that the dog was really freaking annoying, especially when we saw that first 10-minute scene with Crypto. I was like, are you kidding? This is going to be the movie with this freaking dog. And I thought that scene was too long with the dog jumping around everything. But again, even seeing it the second time, I love that damn dog. I'm really, they've completely won me over with Crypto. I've said it last.
Nope.
I guarantee you the number of white dog adoptions statistically we'll find probably in a year's time from now has risen dramatically since the release of this film. They've done nothing but positive things for pet adoption. So I'm about it. Even Joey, again, you know, we had kind of speculated because we kept getting you know, random toys of this baby alien, and we were like, who the shit is Joey? So once we had the reveal and we knew that he was Metamorpho's son, it all kind of clicked and made sense. And even that green alien baby was adorable. You know, they and I said it last week too. Every single
Baby
cameo,
Joey.
yeah, every single cameo that we had speculated about, James Gunn threw in there. So we got Peacemaker. We got
Peacemaker. Yep.
Yeah, we got. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but we got Frank Grillo Sr. What is his?
Rick Flag Sr. He's going to be the main villain in the next Peacemaker season.
We got Rick Flag Sr. We got the Justice Gang. We got it was just so great to see all of you know, kind of basically our hopes and dreams really actually manifest and come true, come to life. And he gave us everything that we wanted. Yes, again, I did have a couple of problems with a couple of those parts in the story, as I mentioned, but at the end of the day, I'm so happy with this film, and I'm glad everybody else seems to be enjoying it for the most part. Everyone did their damn job as far as I'm concerned. The soundtrack was great. I actually, you know, and James had said this too. He said it wasn't going to be all about the soundtrack. He wasn't going to treat this like Guardians of the Galaxy, which was basically built around a soundtrack, but that made sense for the character, for the universe, for his backstory. Whereas this, again, it's a world, completely fictional world, completely fictional characters, completely fictional story. So why would we throw in, you know, known pieces of music and audio? So I think all of the right decisions were made in that regard as well. But I thought it was great. I had a great time. I'm so glad I saw it again. I'm looking forward to seeing it hopefully again soon. I have some time coming up in August. Hopefully it'll still be in theaters by then, but I don't know what the hell movie theaters are doing anymore, so I can't tell you. You know, I told you I was shocked that they had Captain America in theaters for as long as they did.
It lasted. I mean, Disney always does that. I do believe Warner Brothers. Hopefully, well, Disney is one of the things that Disney does well is they keep their movies in theaters longer on average.
Yeah.
Than
I mean,
other
even Thunderbolts was there for quite some time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do hope they do keep Superman in there till like the fall months, right? Like, because I mean, David Cornswet, like Ariana is saying, was the best part of the movie, and
really was.
I just think like his casting, like the choice of casting here, James Gunn, he turned Chris Pratt from, you know, somebody who we knew as the adorable Andy from Parks and Rec into a sex symbol in the first Guardians movie to now an absolute megastar. And David Cornswet, like completely relative unknown. His biggest role before this, while he was auditioning, I was watching his GQ interview the other day from that cover shoot that he did on YouTube, and he basically was in the process of filming his biggest role to date until now, Twisters. And he found out on the set of Twisters literally a few days into starting filming, and he had to go back from Oklahoma where they were filming the movie to go do the audition, the screen test. And then when he got the call, he was back home in Philly with his wife that he only recently married, and I think they're meant to be having a kid soon. So he's this very down to earth person in real life. I just feel like the casting choice is so good because this guy feels like he's the real deal. It's like more so than even Henry Cavill, and I feel like even more so than Christopher Reeve in a way. But we'll see. Christopher Reeve did like 4 movies, but so let's see how things go over the course of the next, I don't know how many years and how many movies is going to be a part of. But we haven't had a bad Superman in probably ever. Even if you hate Dean Cain's politics, he was a good Superman too. And Tyler Hoechlin recently, great Superman on TV, and we've got something about that from in the quick hits later. But David Cornsweet is perfectly cast. I think he's just so good. By the way, as far as other people's like favorite lines, everybody's typing in their favorite stuff in the comments. I will give you my favorite line from the movie, which I think Fiona has brought in here, which is, when he has this conversation with his dad. I thought that was probably one of the most heartfelt moments in the whole movie, and it's what was the crux of, I think, the first full official trailer where you see them like sitting on their porch in Smallville and at the farm, and you see just this heart to heart between Pa Kent and Clark. And it's the whole thing of your choices, Clark, your actions. That's what makes you who you are. I thought that was probably, one of my favorite lines in the entire movie. That, and then the next favorite line that I had was when they're here before taking off with the whole Daily Planet crew, with Cat Grant in the back. You got, why am I forgetting Christopher McDonald's character's name? And then of course Jimmy and Perry White just like being his comic booky self. And then Steve Lombard jostling around in the back, being like, "Why don't I have a seat?" And then he gets thrown into the door. That was my other favorite line. This movie has a lot of fun moments, and I feel like for me, it's gonna grow on me the more I watch it, which is why I'm excited for the second time around I watch it. The other question that Fiona had was, "Is there still popcorn in that bucket behind you?" Well, you noticed I picked it up. There's still.
Oh damn.
Popcorn.
Wow, that's a lot too. Jeez Louise. Also, how can you put popcorn in one of those popcorn buckets? That's a rule you don't break.
They put it in there. I didn't put it in there. I don't know. Ooh.
They didn't give you the choice? Ooh, I would never go to that theater again. That's terrible.
Oh well, that popcorn bucket is back there somewhere now. Yikes. Okay. I'll have to clean that out at some point in time.
Yeah, dude.
I managed to turn my TV on, and that means there was going to be audio playing. I was watching Top Gun Maverick earlier because, when you're feeling down, because I was having a really low energy morning. So there we go. I don't want Top Gun music playing in the background. I'm going to be so distracted. But anyway, getting back to the conversation, I did want to quickly point out, though, like Fiona mentioned in the chat, guys, we just hit 3,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for everybody who's here, especially anybody new who's just joined. Thank you so much for all of your time, effort, the energy. Stopping by on a Sunday. I mean, Manus Time was saying we're not usually live on Sunday. It's great to see you guys.
Because of me, sorry.
We're doing a Liz special because Liz wasn't able to take part in the conversation on Friday.
Dan was being magnanimous and letting me be a part of it because he knew, because like I was genuinely bummed out that I couldn't be a part of the spoiler review. So again, thank you, Dan, for making that possible. Thanks for being here, you guys. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want you to be part of the conversation, especially because the more you get into DC now, you have been a huge Marvel fan with the MCU, and we have seen, anybody who's been watching the show long enough, we have seen Liz go from like, I don't know, like we'll see, to like she had the most positive reaction to Superman on Tuesday. So I definitely wanted to get your
he is my favorite superhero. He's what got me into fandom in general. It started with Superman. It went into X-Men. It went into Star Trek, and then Marvel kind of took hold of me. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is also my bag. Back here, there. But I said this last week too, I still have really not cared for any of the Supermans that we got. I do love Henry Cavill. I appreciate the work that he put in, but they just never grabbed me the way the Christopher Reeve iterations had. Even George Reeve, the TV show George Reeve, originally it was black and white, then it turned into Technicolor. I grew up watching those episodes. So for me, Superman is a big deal, and I've really just never seen him done well or given his due since the Christopher Reeve era. So this was really important to me, and it's delivered over and over again, again, now that I've seen it twice. So I couldn't be happier with what we've got and what this generation of movie fans and potential, comic book readers is getting. So I said it last week, I'll say it again. James Gunn has definitely created more comic book readers. Like I said, white dog adoption is going to skyrocket. People are, he kind of even redeemed, the Green Lantern story a little bit there. Even though I know they're different characters. He made lanterns cool again, and now we're getting the Lantern show coming up. So,
which is almost done filming, actually.
Things are just taking off. It's really incredible. I'm just looking forward to everything else that's coming down the pipeline for sure. This is amazing.
It's gonna be fantastic. Yeah, and I think the Pac that we got in this movie just feels so much different from any that we have gone before. So I really did enjoy that part of the movie quite a bit, and I know that you guys did as well. And of course, they pointed that to us in the trailer that he's gonna be like the parents, Superman's parents on Earth, not the Kryptonian parents, will be the heart and soul of this Clark, because they helped make him the man that he is today. And from the line of, your actions, your choices, they make you who you are. And it's just and to the whole, the very first time we get to see them in the movie, where Ma Kent is making that phone call, struggling with the technology, with she's got the phone on the desk, and Pa Kent is there don't be a stranger, and he's like, I heard her, it's the whole the father-son relationship, which is it could be a little rocky at times, and then when Lois brings a very injured Superman back over, that's the first time she meets the parents, and really I think the relationship between them at that point was almost non-existent, and then it starts to turn. They'd sort of been both walking out the door, where she realizes no, this guy's the real deal. When he said he loved the mighty Crabjoys, and he grew up with this sensibility of kindness and just work hard and stuff, just the work ethic that he has. And because obviously you can imagine she probably maybe didn't believe everything he was saying, but then that's where things start to turn for her. And then of course at the end of that whole sequence, I cleaned your boots, I'll get him for you, and then he's off. So I'm just I love it. You love to see it. And it's just like Adrian was saying, there's such a contrast between this version of Superman and the last one that we had, because this Superman just kind of takes things to a different level in terms of giving us a more classic version, but at the same time is updated for the here and the now. And I feel like that's where some compares, because I think I went into the movie thinking they were really going for the Christopher Reeve version, but there are a lot of things about the Superman movie that feel like they've been updated for the world we live in today. Liz, I wanted to ask you, speaking of which, there was a rumor going about before the movie came out that people could not figure out if it was true or not, and some people couldn't even believe they would actually have this in the movie. But apparently the monkeys, the monkeys that were,
you mean the Snyder cultists?
The Snyder, well, yeah, I'm so John and I couldn't, we were trying to debunk that. We were like, surely that's not in the movie. There was no official reporting, but apparently in the pocket dimension, which then at the end, Crypto's chasing them away, which was really cute. What did you think about that whole thing? Because again, there was some commentary there, which again, as any good sci-fi movie does, it provides you allegory to the real world, because toxic social media is a big part of the world we live in today. And clearly Lex Luthor was trying to do some character assassination for Superman in this movie.
As I said last week, the first time I saw it, the moment that scene came out and you saw the wall of monkeys, who are hardwired in their brains and they're typing all of their, they're doing all their trolling. That's the first thing that came out of my mouth was, oh, that's a nod to the Snyder cultists. That's all, and I kept bringing that up. Did anybody see the Snyder cultists in Superman yet? That's all I could think. It just made me crack up, because unfortunately it's true. There's a lot of trolls out there, but there's also a lot of fake, AI BS trying to turn us against one another. So y'all, surf the internet, but beware, be wary of the people that you interact with and you chat to, because they could be mind-controlled monkeys. You just don't know.
It's to me, it in the moment I was like, oh no, man, that is true. They actually do have them in the movie, but then eventually I was like, okay, I get it. Like it was actually kind of fun. Like they had fun with it. It was almost like the kind of, well, I don't know if it's a fair comparison, but in the Marvels movie, like the cats sequence at the end, it kind of felt like that in somewhat. Like they were just there to be, not really so much to be. I didn't take him as like trolling the Snyder cultists so much as the idea that, yeah, I mean, well, symbolically, I guess you could say that's a good comparison, but it was just funny when you saw Crypto chasing them around at the end, or like how Crypto was taking down all of Mr. Terrific's T-spheres. It's like, come on, you brought that dog, man. It's like, oh, great.
He's like, you know how much those things cost? Yeah, no, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, if you guys are watching the show and you're enjoying it, please do hit the like button. We appreciate it so much, especially we just crossed 3,000 subscribers, all because of you guys. So thank you so much for stopping by and watching us live, and then even after the fact, we'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. Frankie G is saying that we might be getting big announcements coming in SDCC. We don't quite have any confirmation yet. We know that Peacemaker is coming to San Diego Comic-Con because they debut season 2 literally weeks from now. So, and they have announced some of that information on Instagram. We'll get into that more this week. As far as what is David's next project, I've been watching a ton of the interviews during promotional work that they've done, the whole cast over the last few weeks and months.
I know what Nicholas is.
Yeah, and you can tell us in a second, but I did want to cover quickly the David. So far, I don't know if he's casting anything big, but I know he's a big Star Wars fan, so I know that he's mentioned he would love to at some point, I don't know, be cast in the Star Wars universe at some whatever story, but. Which I love that this guy, he's such a nerd about it all. So I do love that. But I mean, I don't know if he's got another Twisters movie on the horizon or anything like that. If you guys know, do let us know in the comments down below. But yeah, I mean, Maya and Paquin in this movie were fantastic, and they couldn't have been more different from previous iteration, like you said, Frankie. And we hopefully will get more of them. But Mama Ken and Paquin and. I'm certainly not ready for Paquin to, have a heart attack and drop dead anytime soon. So I don't want that.
But he was looking close to it. I'll be honest.
Yeah. Yep. But Man of Steel Magnolias saying he loved the movie. He literally just got out of the theater. So thank you so much for stopping by. I mean, we're talking about it in spoiler fashion, Man of Steel Magnolias. Let us know what was your favorite part. What was maybe the part that you hit the most? Did you just love the movie and everything was great? Get into the chat, get into the comments. We'd love to bring that into the show and talk about it. I love when his mother says she cleans. Yes. That was one of my favorite moments as well. So let's see. Well, who else do we have? Monique is just dropping by here in the chat. Let's see what Monique is saying. But yes, great satire for the monkeys. I'm a bit behind on your comments, guys. Trust me, I'm going to catch up with everybody. If you guys want to drop in a super chat, obviously we'll take that support, but then that it actually puts your comment at the top of the queue because the way StreamYard works. But Watcher saying what's great is that we can actually grow with the Superman, which Liz, I guess that's a good question to ask. Do you feel like as somebody, again, you've enjoyed the MCU over the years, and so you've seen characters like Iron Man and Captain America kind of grow from characters that people didn't even talk about before those movies came out. But Superman has been around for a long time. So we have seen, it's kind of like James Bond, we have seen many actors come and go. So do you think David Cornsweet with this debut performance has done enough to convince you that if he was to stick around for the next 20 years as the Superman of, the DCU, would you think he's got the chops to, and maybe even the range to pull it off? Are you looking forward to seeing more of this Superman?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love his dynamic with Lois. I like their relationship, their back and forth. Again, she's kind of trying to be, I don't know about a moral compass necessarily, because he definitely has his morals in the right place, but she's trying to explain to him how the world works. You can't just go off and do things because you believe you're right. There are ways to go about things. There's the right way and then there's the wrong way. So I dig that she kind of challenges him in that, even though she understands his heart, she understands where he's coming from. I think that's really great. And again, Rachel Brosnahan has said herself that she is committed to being a part of this for the next 10, 15 years, as long as they keep inviting her back. She wants to be in it. So I think that's really positive. And I've got to assume, just from, again, everybody's chemistry, the way everybody has been really great as far as, making all the media circuits, the junkets there. I think it's safe to say is on board as well to stick around for as long as humanly possible. So we'll see if we do get a Mr. Terrific spinoff, if we do get a Jimmy Olsen spinoff. Hopefully it'll still get the James Gunn treatment so that it can be done right. I always get weary of spinoffs because I feel like sometimes they go a little too hard to the point where we almost kind of get sick of those characters, and I certainly don't want that to happen. I don't want them to be over exaggerated and essentially become caricatures of themselves just for money, entertainment value, for a cash grab. I certainly don't like easy jokes. I don't like corny jokes. So we'll see what happens there, but I definitely love Mr. Terrific. I love Guy Gardner. I love Hawk Girl, even though we didn't get as much with her as we did with the other two. So here's hoping we get more of pretty much everybody, because everybody did the damn thing. They all showed up and they certainly delivered.
Yeah, and then people are already like Glimmercast saying they want to see a Mummy revival with David and Rachel,
John
which would be great.
Saying last week that there were times that David resembled Brendan Fraser, and he certainly did. Especially, I think John had called it out as well, but I saw it when I saw it again for the second time this morning when Ultraman, essentially evil Superman, is pushed in front of the descending bus, and he's falling back into the black hole. He looked exactly like Brendan Fraser, and he was just doing that, but he looked exactly like Brendan Fraser. It was really freaky. So I am 100% on board with that. Let's go ahead and redo the Mummy. That's great. I loved all those movies. So if James Gunn wants to be a part of that as well, I wouldn't be mad at that either. But yeah, I'm for anything any of these people want to do. I'm fully invested now at this point.
Yeah, and in the chat, Manos Time telling us what everybody is up to in their next project. Looks like Rachel Brosnahan is playing a protagonist in the Presumed Innocent season 2 of that show. Nicholas Hoult, like you mentioned, is going to be the protagonist in the next David Leitch movie.
Yes, and it's called How to Rob a Bank. Yes.
Yeah, and it
that's
looks
why his
like
hair is blonde,
which makes sense. He looks great with or without hair. But David Cornsweet, he's going to be playing Mr. Irrelevant, the heartfelt story of the inspiring, enduring impact that Mr. Tuggle had on his team and teammates after being drafted by the New York Giants. So he's doing a sports drama. That looks interesting.
Really cool.
Manos Time asking, Dan, do you think anything will happen now that Lex and Cersei are locked up in the same prison? Are they in the same prison? Like, no, I don't know if they implied that Belle Reve is where Lex was going. Was he going to Belle Reve? Did you catch that?
That's what they said. They said send him to Belle Reve. Absolutely.
Oh shit. Okay. You know what? Yes, I don't think that's a coincidence. James Gunn probably has something in mind. So
he knows what he's doing.
By the way, I love that Manos Time pointed out that he would love to see because they are going to do eventually in the next few years an Indiana Jones reboot. And I would love to see, I think The Watcher said it actually, Indiana Jones potentially being a role that David Cornsweet takes on. I think it would be amazing for that role. Like we're going to do an Indiana Jones fan casting coming up soon. We have been on the horizon for a while. We already did a James Bond one recently, so you can go back and check that out, I think from a week ago. And we're going to probably now we have to do a Mummy one as well. So you guys are giving us great ideas because we're about to launch memberships. So there will be some, not like everything will be behind memberships, but some of these will be, end up being like membership content. So we'll keep you in the loop. But like I know John's excited about this, so definitely I think the Legion of Doom could be potentially where we can go with the Lex Luthor storyline, and in Cersei and Lex Luthor teaming up would be quite the team. So, and that's what they were even trying to hint at with the DCEU. When the theatrical version of the movie that we never got a follow up to, but nonetheless, I mean, I'm sure James Gunn might have some ideas for that. Jimmy Olsen's side romance story, honestly, Man of Steel Magnolias, just walking out of the theater, I know that you have a very fresh perspective on this. I think we talked about it earlier in the show. I would love to see if they were to give Jimmy Olsen his own TV show, like, just are we going to bring Sarah Sampaio back? Like, and is she going to be like, is that going to be where we pick things up? Like, is this like, because before we were able to talk about spoilers, I was thinking the dynamic between her and Jimmy, between Miss Tessmacher and Jimmy in the movie felt the closest to the third Transformers movie with Shia LaBeouf and Rosie Huntington-Whiteley. Like, it was like, him and then her don't feel like they're like, how did that happen? But like it did somehow. So like it was, I was like, that's what it felt like to me. But clearly this movie, Liz, has been connecting with everybody in a way that, I mean, for example, Adrian saying that he hasn't connected with superhero movies in many years. And it's just genuine human movie that thanks to David Cornsweet's vulnerability and sincerity, which I think that plays out over the course of the film in a way that the more you watch it, the easier it's going to be. Well, not the easier, but the more rewarding the experience is going to be. This is one of those movies, it feels like the more times you see it, the more it will grow on you. So I mean, look, Spider-Man has a movie coming out next year. I still feel like Spider-Man is going to make more money, but I feel like, you know, Superman, now that this movie is out and is so well received, like I have the latest Rotten Tomatoes number. Let me see if I can switch that up, because we will be talking about the box office later, and I've saved your comments for the box office chat. But Liz, it's still holding at 82% with the Rotten Tomatoes score for the critics, with over 350 reviews. I feel like at this point the number is going to stay there. It's not going. The more reviews there are, the less likely it is that the percentage will fluctuate.
The movie can't just suddenly start being bad. So
yeah, and like the audience number too, 10,000 plus verified ratings, that is going to stay in the 90s. So 93% audience score and 82% critic score is about as ideal of a set of numbers that Warner Brothers and DC Studios could have possibly hoped for. And we do actually have some comments from both from James Gunn and David Zaslav later in the show about the box office. So, but before we move on from the review, because we are talking about more Superman marketing today, we're going to continue to, you know, bring in your comments and questions about the movie. And then we also have to talk about the box office, because we have some, you know, more definitive numbers for what Superman has done over the course of this weekend. I want to compare it to Man of Steel as well. And then, you know, we'll move on from there into talking about like what might be the actual total of the box office tomorrow morning. But Liz, what Superman villain would you like to see in the next movie? It's a pretty good question. We already got Lex Luthor, which is like the quintessential Superman villain. So where do you think they go next?
I don't know if I know a lot. I mean, obviously, even though we're not doing an origin story, obviously we're going to need, you know, the bad guys from Krypton to make an appearance. It'll be interesting to see if James Gunn does go that route, or if he gives us again more characters that we've not really seen on a big screen before. For me personally, I hope it is somebody that I've never seen or encountered. But also, you know, we had the cameo with Peacemaker in there. It would be interesting it would be interesting to see if he uses the villain as a way to connect the other projects that are going on, to kind of bridge those two things.
Yeah, maybe laying the groundwork for the Legion of Doom thing that they're talking about now, that you're have two supervillains in Belle Reeve. So
exactly. So I really don't know. I mean,
Brainiac could be it. People are wanting to see that. Like maybe Brainiac is where they go. I think generally it's still kind of an open-ended question, because I don't know if we're gonna get a Superman movie like a Superman 2 for at least a couple of years. I mean, maybe they fast track it, but so far there's been no announcements. But again, we haven't even hit Monday yet, so I'm sure that will change in the days to come. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I personally would like to see General Zod eventually, because I know, you know, he's one of those villains that every Superman has pretty much come up against. So I know they didn't want to go there immediately, and I don't think they need to be in any rush to do it. But like if they follow the arc of the Christopher Reeve movies, which I'm not saying they are, but they did have Zod in Superman 2, which is still, Superman 2 is still considered the best Superman movie ever made, at least if you go out the Rotten Tomatoes score and such. So we'll see. I mean, I did want to mention though, very quickly, like Monique was saying in the chat, we have got a poll up on the YouTube channel where if you're watching us live, how many times have you seen Superman? And so far, there is no option for 0, because if you know everybody here, because we're talking spoilers, you've seen the movie. Which, by the way, hit the like button, help us out. But as far as where we are right now in the poll, if you're watching live, half of you guys have seen it at least once. Twice, 26% of you have seen it twice. Nobody has hit 3 times, because more than everybody, I guess, who saw it twice or didn't see it twice has seen it more than 3 times. So more than 3 times has got 21% of the vote. So that's fantastic. fantastic, terrific, however you want to, I'm trying to not mix up my Fantastic Four and Superman references here. Maybe Lex comes back in the sequel. That could be another one. Question from Adrian though, and Liz, did you think that Lex was just out to torment and humiliate Superman? Because remember, there is like this, like in the third act, Superman asked, like, why do you like take so much interest in me? Like, what's your problem? Because like, there's other metahumans, and like whether Lex is talking about him on the on TV in the movie and all those interviews he does, or literally through Ultraman's chest microphone.
Yeah.
Why do you think Lex was at? What's his feud with Superman? Like, why this metahuman?
I mean, it's going to sound really simple, but I think it is really that simple. It's basically anybody who does anything out of fear, right? He is afraid because he knows, even with all of his vast amounts of wealth and privilege, he cannot control Superman, and that terrifies him. And at the end of the day, he keeps calling him an alien with disdain, because
he doesn't even call him a person. He's like, he's an it, like when he's in the fortress.
He's an it, he's an alien, but it's because he genuinely doesn't know what he's dealing with. He genuinely doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know his origins. The more he learns about him, he's taking that information and finding a way to twist it in a way that can hurt and manipulate Superman, because he's genuinely operating out of fear. Not to say that it's right, not to justify any of his actions, but again, that's the majority of why bullies are bullies, is because of fear of the unknown, fear that they're going to be overshadowed by somebody that's more special, or viewed as more special than they are. So again, it doesn't matter how much money you have in this world. The number one thing he fears is not being in control at all times. And he makes a point to say that, yeah, I'm envious of you because you can do all of these things that I can't. But at the end of the day, who are you? So it's it's a tale as old as time at the end of it. But not to justify any of it, because he certainly does some horrible things, but at the bottom line, usually when it comes to bullies, it's that simple, it's that basic. So
I mean, there's multiple reasons. I had to watch it a second time to catch what exactly he says, because at one point Nicholas Hoult has this like really mini monologue which is meant to sort of summarize why he's got a problem with Superman specifically. Why did he create Ultraman as a clone of Superman?
Yeah, he says it a couple of times when he's dealing with the officials in the Pentagon. He kind of hints to it, but again,
he says it on the TV interview, because they asked him the
not
question.
Necessarily from a personal level, but like, we should all be scared. Like, we should all have these concerns. We should all feel the same way. I'm doing it for everyone because I know you feel the way I feel. And then when he's ultimately faced with Superman, after Superman destroys Ultraman, or dispatches him into a black hole, and he's finally confronted, and he's like, what is your deal, dude? And he's like, you're an alien, you're an alien, and you can do stuff I can't do, and it's not okay, and there needs to be checks and balances.
It's out of a sense of fear, however misplaced it might be. I did want to address though, like, before we even talk about Superman 2, which I have on screen, and I'll get back to that in a second, Watcher. But like you mentioned, I haven't addressed this yet. We haven't addressed this even on Friday. That white Martian, did you notice in the intro, in the pocket dimension, like he's the one driving the whole thing? That's the white Martian. I've been wanting a Martian Manhunter. I hope that means we're gonna get Martian Manhunter in this universe, because an alien of a similar looking biology, at least visually, we see in Peacemaker Season 2's trailer behind the scenes. So I can't wait to see what that turns into. Tall, dark, and Martian. Not Lex's type, but I do like that they've already set up all these seeds, because, I mean, Liz, I don't know if you noticed that, but clearly they're even building in some Martian Manhunter lore already, even at a very low level. But
well, that was also my question too, because again, so we know that he's created this pocket universe. They only really seem to access it from one or two portals, but they do say that there are portals all over the place. So that was one of the things that I was curious about, was, okay, so now what are we going to do with these portals?
And
Is
also, they're
somebody
meant
else
to
going to
be,
control access to them? Are we gonna? Maybe we
yeah.
don't know where every one of them are, and somebody at points they're just going to stumble upon one in future projects. So I think those portals are going to play a big part, not only in if we do get a Superman 2, but also possibly in Peacemaker, possibly in Lanterns, possibly in some other projects. I think those are going to come up again and again, because the easy way out when it comes to writing is multiverses, you guys.
Well,
So
and I was just gonna mention though, Liz, in the movie, like when Mr. Terrific talks about the whole how Lex created it, which was like, oh, it confirms my fear that he actually did it, was he mentions to Lois like he created a rift between two universes, and that's where this pocket dimension exists. So I'm wondering,
yeah,
I brought this up the other day.
that's the
I
other
wonder
universe.
what's the yeah, exactly, what's in the other universe. So
Yeah.
is it a two
Yeah, I like that
universe
too, where
thing?
Mr.
Like it's
Terrific
like,
is like, yeah, that's the kind of sloppy science
yeah,
he's known for, or whatever,
yeah.
so again, to indicate that this is not the first time that Lex has done a couple oopsies with
And
technology.
and the
So
fact that he's willing to let so many people die in the third act, he's like, they chose him, let them die. To the
yeah,
point he's like,
yeah.
he didn't care about the everybody who. I wonder
Because
how many
again,
countless
it
people were
just
in Lex
goes to
Corp.
show it doesn't matter how
Yeah,
much money you have. If
it's
you're a piece of shit,
wild.
people are going to recognize you're a piece of shit, and you're not going to have any friends.
Yep,
Change your personality, not your bank account. You know what I'm saying?
yep.
Are you listening, Elon, Bezos, Zuckerberg? Any of them making sense to you? People like Warren Buffett, but for some reason they don't like any of you fucks. Figure it out. Gain it, add a personality maybe. Do some good in the world, possibly. Shit.
Yeah. And by the way,
Um,
yes, Lex did call that Martian Mr. Handsome, and he had a photo of him on his own desk,
I
which
couldn't
John
tell.
was talking about the other day.
Both times I couldn't tell if it was Mr. Handsome or Mr. Hanson. Like the guy actually had a real name. So okay, I thought Mr.
I think
Handsome
it
as
was
well. It made more sense.
yes, I think it was Mr. Handsome, but
I think he
yeah.
called it Mr. Handsome. Yeah, it made more sense to me. Yeah.
I do want to point out the comment from Adrian, which I think is, again, this movie does, I think, has some shaky writing in some
I don't know,
instances,
Adrian. Everybody else is
but
calling it woke. It was woke. It's
but
woke
it doesn't
Superman.
feel
We've never had
preachy.
a woke Superman before, please.
Yeah, this movie doesn't feel preachy at any point in time. Again, it's good
No.
allegory, but it never preaches to you. And
Yeah.
if anything, I mean, I feel like we are not used to seeing Superman talk in the way David Cornsweet does in this movie. At least not, for a generation and a half
Yeah,
almost. I think the
Superman
last
has never
time,
really had like intellectual conversation before.
like, well, at least the last time we had a movie of this scale, it was where Superman talked like this was like Brendan Routh's Superman Returns, like almost 2 decades ago now. Like in a couple of years, we'll be celebrating 20 years since that movie came out. In fact, was it? Next year is going to be a 20-year anniversary of that. So there's an entire generation and a half of people who have grew up with Man of Steel and that version of Superman. So I think it feels a little bit of like it's a little jarring in a way, which I think that caught me a little bit too. But once you get used to it, it's fine. And in fact, it grows on you. Now, one of you guys was mentioning, several of you guys were mentioning the idea of like, what about a sequel? And yes, James Gunn did indeed respond to a question on Thread saying, when does Superman 2 come out? And he says, define Superman 2. So Liz, I know that in the DCEU, they went from Man of Steel to Batman v Superman. And James Gunn has been hinting, he said it before, that the next project he's working on is sort of a Superman sequel, but not necessarily a direct sequel. This comment from 7 hours ago seems to indicate that maybe James Gunn doesn't have a Superman 2 in mind, rather a Superman inclusive movie. Are they doing World's Finest, which is a more lighthearted version of Batman Superman team up? And even if they're not doing that, is it going to be a problem? The fact that they're going to kind of do maybe, because people wanted a Man of Steel 2, never got one. Do you think we need to get a Superman 2, or is it okay if we go?
I think if anything, there's been a lot of speculation. There's been a lot of back and forth talk. So we know for a fact that we're getting the Batman 2. But James has also said,
which that is completely separate.
Is going to be completely separate from Superman. Those worlds will never meet. However, we do need a Batman for this universe, for this world. And there has been a lot of speculation about that. A lot of fan casting has already gone into it. Who are we going to get for the next iteration of Batman? So I think that's probably where we're headed. I think we're going to get another Batman film, completely aside from the Batman. We're going to, not our Pats. And that is going to somehow have Superman come in. How that is all going to unfold, in my prediction, then that'll lead us into possibly the next Batman, which will then also take us into the Superman.
We lost you for a
realm.
second. Did you mean
Sorry.
they're doing us team up with Batman? We kind of lost you.
I think it'll go like this. We'll have Supergirl, which will somehow introduce the new Batman into this world, which will then lead us into the Batman, the new Batman, and then somehow connect us back with Superman. So I agree. I don't think we're getting a Superman 2. I think we're getting maybe a Superman 1.5, or you know what I mean? We're getting a Batman plus Superman thrown in a little bit to connect the worlds kind of thing. That's what I think we're getting. But again, we also know James is not a fan of origin stories either. So
he said that, yeah.
But the fact that he hasn't mentioned Batman at all in this world makes me wonder how they're all going to connect and how they're going to meet up with one another and enter each other's orbit. Again, they are from two completely different cities as well, so it could be very well that Superman is well aware of Batman, but because Batman's holding it down in Gotham, he doesn't really need to interfere, and so they haven't met each other yet. Something like that. Who knows? But I think that's where we're headed. I think Supergirl might be the foray into getting our new Batman into this realm.
Yeah, and you know what? Speaking of Supergirl, I do have a photo of Supergirl, like from the movie, which again, spoiler warning, we do have Supergirl in the movie. Actually, James Gunn mentioned as much, but we you know, and it was confirmed. She doesn't show up till the third act, and it's not really consequential to the movie outside of the fact that we kind of know that Krypto obviously is now confirmed that he is Kara's dog. But I wanted to bring this up because I want to get your opinion on it. What did you think about Supergirl in this movie? What did you think about her suit? We don't get to see all of it because she's wearing like a jacket. But
yeah,
are you now more excited for Supergirl like next year? Yeah.
Yes, I am, and I mentioned that last week as well because again, I know nothing about Supergirl. I didn't know that they were cousins. I mean, I'm sure I've heard it at some point in my past, but I'm really excited about it. I know John is not happy with the direction they've gone with her because she's giving off very sorority girl influencer vibes. But I
don't get that. I mean, anyway.
I'm all for it. I like the fact that she seems to almost be polar opposites with Superman, where she's just like, devil may care. I'm out here to party. Like, yeah, I'm indestructible like you, but like, that's not my big concern. Like you're saving this universe. I'm just going to go off here and have a good time. And by the way, can you watch my dog while I get drunk on a planet with a red sun? I dig it. And again, all James Gunn has done throughout this film is make me want to learn more from all of these characters. And I felt the exact same way about Supergirl as well. I was like, oh, that's what the movie's going to be? Great. Looking forward to it. Again, tonality, it's going to be completely different from David Corenswet Superman. And I'm here for it. I dig it.
Yeah, and then Millie Alcock looked fantastic in this brief moment that we saw her, and I can't wait to see where this goes, because now, like you mentioned, Liz, we don't know if this movie, like the events of it, will take place before the events of the Supergirl film. Like if she's coming back from her 21st birthday cosmic rager, or if she's about to go on one, because I'd imagine the way she is here, it feels like this is after she has come back, and so she's like, okay, I'll take Krypto back off your hands. So that would mean that Krypto probably isn't going to be in Supergirl. But what did you think about Krypto overall in the film? Like, what were your thoughts on Krypto? Just
again, was he annoying? Yes. Was he a bad dog? Absolutely. But he was also the goodest boy, and I'm totally on board, and I love Krypto now, and I don't give a damn. And I'm an animal lover. I do own cats. Like I said, when we first saw him, I thought it was too much, because James Gunn is a diehard dog guy. So Krypto, I felt like, was like just shoved down our throats in the beginning and during the marketing. But I'm for it. I hope every white dog in a shelter gets adopted over the next couple of years. Because I'm fine with all of it. The beginning, it was a little much with him jumping on an injured Superman and just being just a menace. But look at his owner, Supergirl. She doesn't exactly, as Gary said, boundaries. Liz, there's no boundaries.
Do you know? And I think in the Bronx now they passed a law that dogs are actually now considered part of your family. They're not like property anymore. So. Fair.
I think they're that way in certain countries as well. Yeah. No, that's that makes perfect sense to me. I dig it. I hope they do the same thing for cats, because my cats are expensive. I'll tell you what.
Yep. I mean, a lot of you guys saying, you know, Millie Alcock will do a great job. She fits the bill.
I think she's
And
great.
yeah, I think we have seen some set photos so far. They finished filming, so they're in post production. And Craig Gillespie, the director of the movie, did direct Cruella, so it's looking like, you know, they've picked a great director for this as well. Let me see if I can pull up. I think the post we had up earlier was James Gunn essentially commenting on somebody asking him about that, about the idea that Craig Gillespie, of course, who's already got an impressive resume with I, Tonya and Cruella, I think it's the right tone that you want to establish for Supergirl. So
yeah.
Eugene is in the chat. He's seen it 3 times.
Unhinged women. So great. This will be.
No, exactly. And Lobo's going to be in it. Jason Momoa playing Lobo. But have you seen her in Sirens? Like Millie Alcock is recently in that Netflix show. People have been saying that was pretty good. I mean, it just finished airing recently, so I mean, you can probably go because that's the
okay.
Next
Now,
thing
no, there was a different show called Sirens as well, but that's not the show that I was thinking of. So no, I've not seen her in that. No.
I know you mentioned earlier the whole, you know, the guy that I think is Ahmed Malik or something, the name of the shawarma vendor who then Lex tortures and kills playing Russian roulette. And
yeah,
what did you think about that? That still felt like it was just like why. Like, why do
I don't think it needed to be shot that way. I think they could have shot it differently without, you know, really. Again, I know pulling back from, you know, he tried to, you know, kind of distance us from the violence, but I just don't think it needed to be presented that way at all. Yes, it's important to show that Lex is a bad guy and there's no redeeming qualities to him, but I just don't think it needed to happen like that, unfortunately. Again, especially not if you're really trying to promote this as an all ages family friendly film. Yes, there was some cursing in it, and I brought this up last week as well. It all made sense when they curse, unlike some of the Marvel films where, like, it was, you know, for me, a lot of the times when they were cursing in the Marvel movies, it was like, oh, because, you know, we're away at college for the first time and mom and dad aren't here to tell us what to do. Like, that's how it felt. Whereas here, it made sense with the dialogue, with the situation that was happening. And I also think they did it purposely to highlight the fact that Superman is the only one that's not. You know, he uses words like golly and shucks and, oh, I'm a real jerk. You know, I think that's the most extreme that he had to say about himself. So it was hard for me to see that part, because I don't think it needed to be presented that way.
I mean, but you do see the contrast, like, because at one point Superman says, like, I gotta get back to the fray. I'm like, who talks like that? But anyway, I did think this whole sequence was, like, the whole torture sequence, I think that was one of the things that stood out to me, like, tonally inconsistent with the rest of the film. But you know, again, because like later on when you guys were talking about earlier, what about the leader of Baravia, like that Hawk Girl grabs and just dumps into the ground?
I didn't like that part either. Yeah, so, I mean, I understand. Again, it was kind of along those lines of Batman, right? You know, Christian Bale's Batman was like, yeah, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. I get it, yes. But at the same time, like, I would have also had no problem if she had turned him into the authorities and you know, justice had been served the lawful and legal way.
Which
Manos is asking why do people have a problem. Well, Manos is asking why do people have a problem with Lex shooting people? It's not that we have a problem with him shooting him. It's that it didn't need to be presented that way. Again, we can have a shot of Lex and hear the gun go off and then see Molly, you know, crumple to the floor. It just
like really, they didn't cut away from it. Which
visually
they've cut away from moments like that in Joker, like with Joker and Heath Ledger's Joker. Every time he killed somebody, like literally by running a knife through their face, they would cut away from it. And The Dark Knight, which felt like a much darker movie to this, and then in here they just show
not that it was overly graphic, because again they did pull the camera back, but
then they rotated upside down.
It didn't have to be presented that way, and that didn't. It just doesn't sit right with the rest of the tone of the film, frankly.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Liz, you mentioned your favorite fight sequence in the movie was the one at the end with Superman in the air, like frying everybody with his laser.
No, pretty much all of them were. Pretty much all of them. Again, also because they were all shot so differently and presented so differently. So again, Mr. Terrific going after, you know, the military base that Lex oversees, you're
That
seeing
was
it
pretty epic.
essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, you're basically just seeing it from the bubble where Lois is being protected. That was really cool. The cinematography on that, the camera angles, everything was really, really interesting. Again, yeah, seeing him fight the Raptors was kind of reminiscent of the two Guardians of the Galaxy films and the scenes in the prison. It's just controlled chaos. But like I said, for me, I just kind of laughed out loud when he was fighting the engineer and Ultraman in the stadium, because at one point the engineer kind of attaches herself to him. So he's like, all right. And he just starts swinging her around and essentially hitting Ultraman with her body. And I thought that was pretty funny and very creative. So I dug all of it, really.
Yeah, I thought Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner had some of the best moments in the movie too.
Oh, fantastic. And that haircut was brilliant. I don't care. That haircut.
What was it? Like, what's the comment that Lois makes? Like that haircut should be against your bylaws, and he's like, wait, what should be against what now? And it's like,
yeah, great. Exactly.
I can't wait to see more. Thank you, Adrian, for stopping by. He's gotta run, but like, be sure to stop by again if we don't see you very often in the chat. So
yeah,
if you are here, hit the subscribe. We'll be here tomorrow and basically 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. But Nathan was fantastic. PLO just dropping in. Thank you, PLO, for dropping into the stream. The Watcher saying she's probably a lot more dominant and militant like her Kryptonian race is, hence why Gunn doing the hotel change makes a lot of sense. Are you talking about Supergirl there? Because I don't know what you mean by the hotel change. Am I missing something?
I'm not sure. But anyway.
All right. Well, Adrian just subscribed on his way out. Thank you, Adrian, for doing that again. We are here 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. So I know John's going to be back on the show tomorrow. I see what you... Okay, so connected to like the crypt... That would be interesting, though, because like now that we know the Kryptonians, at least by our perspective, are evil, or certainly don't share our values, it's going to be interesting how... Because Supergirl was born on Krypton, saw her world die. How did that affect her? So that will be very, very interesting. But Liz has to head out. So I'm going to take you guys the rest of the way. Thank you, Liz, again for a fantastic review, and we'll have you back on Friday, right? So we'll see you later in the week. But until then, Liz, thank you again. Do you want to tell the good folks about your podcast on your way out?
Sure thing. It's called Try Not to Curse, available everywhere you consume audio content, including Audible. Dan was just on it for the second time now, or third, technically, Dan. So that episode should be out in about 2 weeks or so. I'll let you know when it finally launches. But to catch up on everything that you've missed so far, we're almost finished with season 2. So please like and subscribe. Comments are always appreciated as well. Try Not to Curse with me, Elizabeth Marvel, and friends.
Yep, we actually we have your link to your podcast in the description of this live show. Yay. So you guys are welcome to go on YouTube, like check it out. If you're watching elsewhere, then I believe wherever we post the show link, we have the information. So Try Not to Curse, search it on Spotify. It's really wonderful podcast. And Liz, thank you again for taking the time. We'll see you later on in the week. We're not done yet because I'm here to continue the conversation, and we've got to talk about some other stuff, including a Fantastic Four trailer and Superman box office. So everybody's saying goodbye to Liz. Watcher is dipping for now, but thank you for hitting us up in the chat. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we move on to the quickets? And then we got to talk about box office. I saved Kevin's comments from earlier. I know a few more of you guys want to get into the numbers. How good is Superman actually doing with regards to the opening weekend box office? So this is about the good question by Manos, though. I don't think, based on how Supergirl shows up, it feels like she's just had her whole adventure. So I don't think Crypto is going to be in Supergirl if I were to just guess based on the cameo that Melly Alcock makes in this movie. But Frankie G saying, I just hope for the sequel they have a more focused story with core Superman characters. I don't need any more Justice Gang in a Superman movie. I agree with you in that sense, because I think we got a lot of that, and I felt like the parts of the movie where it felt probably the most disjointed in the second act was when we were talking about the Justice Gang, or we were showing, which I appreciate it. I really do love to see the Justice Gang, but I think in the sequel, I would like to see, for example, more Lois Lane, because Rachel Brosnahan's character sort of does not have a ton to do in the second act of the movie. And then I would also like to see, more of the Daily Planet crew, because we do see them in parts, but then Perry White, we did not get to see a ton of. And really, when we got to the second act of the movie, Superman was, I think, finding a hard time sharing the screen with everybody else. So, and not to mention, not saying that it wasn't Superman's movie. It was still very much Superman's movie, but I do agree with that comment. Metamorpho, I feel like still in both of our spoiler chats has been sort of thrown by the wayside, but I felt like Metamorpho's character was really, really well done, and he grew on you, and I love the sequence at the end where he just unwitting, not even realizing that he's charming Green Lantern Guy Gardner into joining the Justice Gang. I want to see, now that we have 4 members of the Justice Gang, like you guys were saying in the chat, there is a Hall of Justice, and I think there has been a Justice Society in this world. So the Justice Gang is probably the latest iteration of something. I mean, I wonder what the history of this DCU looks like with other teams in the past, or is the Hall of Justice really, really brand new? Because they did have somebody on like a crane fixing the sign Hall of Justice. So maybe it's a brand new facility. Maybe it's like a revamped one. I don't know how Maxwell Lord came into possession of it. I love that they filmed it in Cincinnati at the original building that the Hall of Justice and the animation and the comics was inspired by, which we talked about last summer when they were filming out in Cincinnati. But yeah, I'd love to see how all of those pieces will fit, because we have at least 4 Justice Gang members. Superman, not really a part of the team, but he works with them. So more Clark Kent, I think, in the sequel would also be great, because I do feel like we got Clark Kent, a lot of him in the opening of the movie, but then we didn't really get to see a lot of that, classic interaction that we like to see with Lois and Clark at the Daily Planet. Like, we got to see them, but I felt like the trailers gave us a lot of what we were going to see in the movie. Like, this whole sequence happens early on, and then, once the action really picks up in the second act, we don't get to see a lot of Clark anymore. But the parts we got to see was great. And the Justice Gang should get their own movie, because I think they deserve it. There's enough attention to be paid there, just those characters alone. I don't know if Guy Gardner's going to survive the Lantern show. I still think my theory will hold true that maybe he's the one who gets off, which leads to the whole just events of Lanterns. But I guess we'll find out. Mr. Terrific, if they are working on a spinoff, I hope that that actually ends up working out for him. Manos Time saying, let's say it's different and it's lovable. Do you think people will have a problem with Jor-El's message? Well, I think people already have a problem with Jor-El's message, Manos. I don't know if you were watching the Friday show when John and Fiona were on. A lot of you guys were like still in disbelief. People are saying they're going to retcon that whole message, that they're going to change things up. And I know there's comic precedents for the Kryptonians from the John Byrne run, kind of like feeling almost like they're villainous based on their values. They're meant to be very counter to who Superman is as a person, what he believes in, more based on his Earth heritage. So it's an open-ended question right now. I feel like Jor-El's message, it's still one of the more controversial parts of the movie, because like Liz said it, John said it, it didn't feel like it needed to be in there. I don't know if they needed to go in that direction. I was reading an article in Slate earlier today talking about how maybe James Gunn, what he did in Brightburn, where it's like an evil Superman movie, which I hope they figured out the legal problems behind that, because Warner Brothers had sued that movie, which now that James Gunn runs DC, I'm sure he's taking care of that problem. But the messaging in that was that the alien world, that in that version of not Superman, but like the evil Superman, I guess you want to call it, Brightburn, not an official DC movie, his parentage in there, like, it's sort of similar. Like, they're like, take the world is what his parents of that evil Superman tell him in Brightburn, which again, not a DC movie, so it wasn't Superman. I forget what it called him in that film, but it feels like this messaging here, it's not the first time James Gunn has done that. So maybe that's where he got the inspiration for it. Maybe he got it from the John Byrne version of the comics. So we'll see. That was, again, PLO who's liking the movie more and more, I think, right? Like, having seen it now multiple times, I think all of us would have liked to maybe not have that in the film, or maybe, just make it so that, the engineer did doctor it somehow, which I think they kind of shut the door on that doing this film. So we'll see. Omni-Man, I don't know if we're going to get him anytime soon, dude, but make a Daily Planet show. I want to see a Daily Planet show. I think the Daily Planet, there's so many characters they've introduced here. I would love to see more of them, showcased in a full-on show, whether it's a Jimmy Olsen show or just overall a full Daily Planet, show. We can definitely have a JSA movie in World War II. Yeah, I hope so, Frankie. I really do hope that maybe that's another spinoff. I mean, Superman 2 apparently is Superman 2 and might go in a few different directions. I just hope that whatever they decide to do, whether it's, indeed a proper Superman sequel or, like James Gunn keeps saying, define Superman 2, if it is sort of like a mix of World's Finest or whatever other stories they're going to bring in, I know James Gunn is going to be learning the lessons that everybody got, from BVS not being so well received. I know Zack Snyder and James Gunn are two very different storytellers, so if they do a Batman times Superman, whatever, whether it's a Versus or World's Finest or any other iteration, maybe they introduce Wonder Woman in there, like you guys are suggesting. Maybe you do a Supergirl and Superman crossover. Maybe it's a movie that is literally the Justice League movie, and that's where they go next. I mean, wherever we go, we know James Gunn's been working on it, and maybe that's where we get to see more of the history of the Justice Society in this universe. So I would like to see Dr. Fate back. I'd like to see Hawkman, because they were some of the best parts of the Black Adam movie. I don't think the actors are going to come back, although Pierce Brosnan was perfectly cast for Dr. Fate. So would love to see that. But guys, keep dropping your comments and questions here. John is going to be back on the show tomorrow to talk about it. If you guys want to drop in the comments down below, you can do that too. Right now, I just wanted to kind of briefly go through some of the quick hits that I had. But before we do that, I have some more Superman marketing to talk about, guys, because we do have a bunch of stuff from the Superman marketing which has not stopped, including Rachel Brosnahan talking about how her character Lois Lane, what would she do as a this intrepid reporter? How can she be more efficient with her food diet? Like, she's just gonna have a lot of meal prep time, so maybe she'll have granola bars and stuff, and so she can just pick it up and go. And you could see in the movie when Clark's cooking for her, he's like, well, she's surprised. She's like, really? Like, you're doing this? Like, you've done this once before. Like, is this really a tradition or no? And that leads into the whole interview. So I like that they're leaning into that. There was a lot of thought put into that. I like that Nathan Fillion continues to talk about that the bowl cut was his idea and he was into it the whole time, and James Gunn only just got on board. We know James Gunn has said that he basically hired Nathan Fillion simply so that he could put him in a bowl cut, which I love seeing that, and I wish we got that for a lot more beyond even Lanterns, because my theory still is that Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner is going to get offed in Lanterns, and that's how Aaron Pierre's John Stewart becomes the next Lantern, while getting trained from Kyle Chandler's more veteran, maybe semi-retired Hal Jordan. That's my theory, but you guys let me know if you agree with that. Again, more teasers, more crypto teasers. The Super Pup was meant for the big screen. Give me as much crypto as you possibly can. The marketing continues to be fantastic for this movie. PLO asking, do you think this film came out too close to the DCEU? Should they have given it more time between movies? I, for one, I don't know about you guys in the comments, but I think they gave it enough time. They gave it a couple of years. Like, here's the thing. There is a certain sense of urgency for Warner Brothers, because they do need to get this new DC universe off the ground eventually. So better now than never, or later. It makes sense. And also, James Gunn and Peter Safran don't have like a 10-year deal. I believe they have a 5-year contract or 3-year contract with the option to extend it for a few years. So very much so, their future with which I think right now is secure, but they have to show results. Like, David Zaslav didn't just tell them, here, you're good for 10 years. So I think it's, as much as maybe they could have used more of a break, I also think the longer you keep a property as valuable to Warner Brothers Discovery as a company on the shelf, like DC, which is their crown jewel, like Marvel is for Disney, the longer you keep it on the shelf, the more it loses value. So yeah, it's a hard balance to strike, but I'm glad that they're getting started on it. And Superman, I think, is resetting the narrative around DC with the general audience, and that's exactly what it was meant to do. Because up until now, outside of a few hits like the Batman, Joker, both of which were separate from the DCEU, by and large, people were going to watch less and less of the DCE, the connected universe movies. And hopefully this starts a new trend, because not only does it tell you this movie is completely different from what has come before, because you don't have the same Superman that you used to have for the last 15 years, but also at the same time, you're going in a very different direction. You got a crypto in this movie. You don't have crypto in even Superman and Lois, which we'll talk about in a bit. So I think it's hard. Like, yes, in an ideal world, they would have liked to have a few years gap, but really, honestly, I don't think they can afford to, and that's why we are where we are. And even now, there's like, I think the last DCEU movie came out a couple of years ago, so that's enough of a gap. Like in pop culture, world, like our collective memories, that's plenty of time. Man of Time saying, I honestly believe if Gunn made the Kryptonians evil, why should we care about the planet blowing up? If only he made Pa and Ma talk about it more. I do think that will get addressed more, because you could tell that Ma and Pa Kent probably saw the same news broadcast that Superman saw. So I do hope that we get more of that conversation in the sequel. And, clearly they didn't have time for that in this movie, but maybe they will in the future. So I look forward to seeing that conversation, and maybe it will happen in a Supergirl movie. Maybe towards the end of that, Superman comes back and makes a cameo, but I'm sure they'll address it. They can't. You don't just set this up and then not address it ever again, right? So I do think the Ma and Pa Kent conversation, talking about Superman's heritage, and now that he knows, that the Kryptonians maybe had a shoddy belief system that doesn't quite line up with how he grew up. I think we'll talk about that in the future, and maybe as early as the sequel to Superman, whether it's World's Finest or Superman 2, whatever they want to call it. I would love to see a Marvel DC crossover. I think we talked about it last week. The idea that it's more possible now than ever before with James Gunn and Kevin Feige. James Gunn, the first person he told about the job that he got, running DC Studios, was Kevin Feige, and Kevin Feige was like, "Oh, you're gonna do a Superman movie?" Because apparently this is true. This came out in an article earlier this past week, before David Zaslav and co reached out to James Gunn for the job. They were trying to convince Kevin Feige to become the new head of the DCU, or the DC Studios, which at the time was not even a thing. DC Studios would have been put together as part of the deal. Things kind of fizzled with Kevin Feige, and clearly, I'm sure Disney made their efforts to keep Kevin Feige in house, because Kevin Feige also loves X-Men, so I'm sure he wants to see all of that through with the Fantastic Four, the Mutant Saga. So maybe that's what kept him there. Maybe Kevin Feige makes a switch down the road if James Gunn is no longer doing his thing, or for whatever reason is no longer involved. But we'll just have to wait and see if this is going to be possible. There's a lot of business issues, at the same time opportunities. Now that Sony has that deal for Spider-Man with Marvel, I think it sets a precedence for maybe how you go about doing it. But yeah, it's not impossible. It's certainly more possible than ever. But as far as if it's going to happen or not, I don't know. I wouldn't expect it to happen anytime soon, though, because we're just at the beginning of this new cinematic universe. So there's a lot more ground they need to cover before they think about doing any, crossovers within their own multiverse of DC characters, like bringing back previous iterations, not to mention going over and doing something with Marvel, which itself, the MCU right now is in a bit of a rehabilitation mode, as it were. So, but thank you, for the good question, Patrick, and, keep on sending them in. We got Enterprising in the chat. Hello, Enterprising. Thanks for stopping by. Liz was on earlier. Sorry you missed that part, but she'll be back on Friday. And then John will be back with me tomorrow. Kyle is in the chat. Hello, Kyle. Thank you for stopping in live. This is one of those rare Sunday shows, but because it's Superman weekend, we got to do a Sunday show. Manos Times comment saying, I don't know what the Kryptonians are truly like, but I know who you are, Clark. You are our son, and we know that you love this world as much as this world loves you. Yes, I would have loved to hear something like that from one of the Kents, right? But maybe they had that, and maybe they cut it out, because again, this movie kind of flies by, like literally like 2 hours and some change. And when you take out the credits, literally probably even less than 2 hours. So I think we've all said one of the things they could improve in this movie would have been maybe add 15 minutes in, because of how packed it is. It would have created opportunities for them to have more of those like lower, not lower, but maybe slower paced scenes that allow you to breathe. Because, for example, the end of this movie, I think, flew by for me. The third act kind of zips by you. The second act feels a bit scattered. The first act is probably the best part of the movie for me, although the third act fight sequences were really good too. But we didn't quite have that poetic end to this movie like Man of Steel has. Even people who did not like Man of Steel thought that, what are you going to do when you're not saving the world? Have you given any thought to that? He's like, I have, actually. I gotta put my ear to the ground and, be able to I gotta get a job. I gotta put my ear to the, where I can put my ear to the ground, go somewhere dangerous and not have anybody ask questions. And then he goes into the Daily Planet, is, We got Clark, our new stringer. Lois, I'd like to have you show him around. You got tickets to the game, and Steve Lombard, you're better off trolling the intern pool. And then Lois goes, well, welcome to the planet. And Superman's like, glad to be here. And they just cheekily smile at each other. And the music stings, and Hans Zimmer's amazing score, like that kind of poetic ending is, I think, something that maybe this movie could have used. And if they gave it 5 more minutes, maybe they could have brought in something like that from Ma and Pa Kent, having that conversation with him. I think on that front too, Liz enjoyed the soundtrack here. I personally think soundtracks have never been James Gunn's, strengths. And that's, quite frankly, I mean, he says it himself, like he's relied a lot. This is an area where he has been growing. So I think Fantastic Four will have a better soundtrack by the time this summer is done. But I do hope the next time around when they do a sequel to this movie, whoever they hire, maybe they go with, I don't know, like bring in Hans Zimmer, bring in maybe Danny Elfman, bring in Michael Giacchino, who's doing the Batman soundtrack, and the Fantastic Four soundtrack. Maybe John Williams, if he's still, I mean, I think John Williams is pretty much retired at this point, but would love to see that. I thought the soundtrack, outside of a few pieces, was underwhelming because Hans Zimmer and John Williams soundtracks are just, especially John Williams, just that is Superman. It literally spells out Superman like this. And while there are moments in this soundtrack, I think ultimately not the best standout feature of the movie. Although the end credits song is amazing. I'm a punk rocker. Yes, I am. Yeah, I enjoyed that firmly. Kyle in the chat saying, I feel like we feel the pace was fast because we didn't see much screen time with all the characters like Perry White, but I liked it. Yeah, that's another reason I feel like, we were all talking about before that maybe one of the problems we will have with such a huge list of characters, that this literally is potentially a problem, that they will have too many characters and not enough room to fit them all. And I think in some ways that is true. And we'll do another postmortem this week, probably several with John and I. So we'll talk about that more. Maybe what could they have done better with the movie. So if you guys have any, comments about that, get in the comments section. We'll pull them in and bring those into the show. So definitely, I think, Kyle, that's a good point. Enterprising, showing up a bit late. That's okay. That's all right. You're here now. We're having a conversation. You see Sesame Street connections with Elmo today and every day. We hope you choose to be a hero in your neighborhood. I love all the connections. I love how this whole thing ends. He's like, did you know she could do that? No, I did not know she could do that. It's like, apparently Lois Lane can fly, which in the comics right now, Lois Lane is Superwoman. So plot twist, Zod will be a good guy. Yeah, PLO, you know what? Maybe since Krypton is a bit of an opposite world based on, the Jor-El and Laura Van's, telling Superman to, I don't know, take the world and dominate it and lead them, to the new age or whatever. Maybe that means Zod was the good guy in this version of Krypton. We'll have to see. Yeah, and hope you've had a good day at work, like Fiona's saying, Enterprising, and now you're here, and we're talking Superman. How many times have you seen Superman, Enterprising? Let us know. Everybody in the chat seems to have seen it at least 2 times. But we have a poll up, so you can vote on there as well. Man of Steel Magnolia saying a little late to the game, but do you think they left the door open to Ultraman becoming Bizarro? Absolutely. I don't think Ultraman is dead in this movie, right? By the end, he doesn't die. I think they find him where, I forget, like what does he get thrown into, like a bit of an abyss or something, like in that rift? But anyway, I don't think he's dead. So if he's not dead, or if you didn't see him die on screen, I definitely think they can do that. After all, like Michael Shannon's Zod became Doomsday, so I'm sure it wouldn't be a stretch, because quite frankly, this Ultraman was more of a Bizarro already, given that he doesn't come from an alternate universe. He's not an evil Superman. He's more of just a zombie Superman, except, he doesn't look like the traditional Bizarro, zombified Superman. So maybe that's where he goes. Maybe after this fight, maybe he gets roughed up more. So yeah, maybe that's where we'll go with it. But yeah, guys, if you're watching, punk rock that like button. We do appreciate that. Manos Time saying the message doesn't even make sense based on what's surrounding it as well. Supergirl and everything in the fortress, like the robots, seem so lovable. They truly can't be evil, right? Yeah, I think they will probably go in and maybe give us a better explanation of that, because like you said, the fortress itself doesn't seem all that evil, Manos, right? Like it's the robots, although the robots are pretty they have a very dry sense of humor, which I understand, but Yeah, I think more context and explanation is required. If there's one thing to walk away from this movie that I think James Gunn needs to be more careful about, is while he can do something like that with the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, where the characters aren't as well known and there isn't as much of an awareness with the general zeitgeist of who these characters are and what is their definitive versions and what do we love the most about them. When you're dealing with a Superman, when you're dealing with a Batman, you're dealing with literally one of, if not the most well-known superheroes of all time, certainly the oldest, the granddaddy of them all. I like that they're taking risks, but he has to be more calculated, because I feel like in this movie that risk was it was very reckless, and especially not addressing it, just kind of leaving it there, like, oh yeah, that message was actually like that. I didn't doctor it, like Superman's parents did the work for me, like because we were all expecting, like, oh yes, that's what I did. We changed up the message. And when the president of Baravia is like, surely you did that, he's like, nope, did not have to do that. It just kind of worked out that way. I never liked the idea of a convenience leading to something, a kind of plot development in a movie. That's bad screenwriting. It's always considered bad screenwriting. That conveniently things lined up, the Deus Ex Machina effect. I don't like that. So I hope that we don't leave it just there. Maybe they'll develop it a little bit further. Enterprising saying, I don't think he made all Kryptonians evil. I do think Jor-El and Laura are less attached to the idea of humans' potential of more. These people can't seem to get the shit together without a firm hand. Yeah, it's fair. I mean, again, we hopefully will get more explanation to it. Should have called it Superman Flyby. There was gonna be one, like back in the 2000s. Henry Cavill actually screen tested for it. 10 years before he actually landed the role. So it wouldn't be the first time they would have tried to make a Superman Flyby. I do like this Al Roker interview on Sirius XM, part of the Today Show. This was part of the New York tour that they did last week on the world tour. David Cornsweet and Rachel Brosnahan. I've actually met Al Roker in real life because I was in the Today Show back in 2011. So fun fact for a Halloween episode, because I won a video contest. I was in high school, whatever. So, but yeah, they're also still promoting the movie across the world with Dubai. Look up Dubai. So that's great. The Burj Khalifa, like completely donning Superman graphics. That looks great. I'm sure if you guys are watching from that part of the world and you saw the movie, let us know in the comments what you thought about it. Enterprising saying, I truly believe Gunn took the broad ideas and concepts that comic writer John Byrne implemented in the early post-crisis 1980 Superman, where Byrne wanted Krypton emotionless, sterile, and cold. Yeah, could be. And I think we just need more context. That's all it is. And if that is the case, then that is the case. I don't mind that. I just thought it was jarring. It was the closest thing to the Martha moment of BVS in this movie. So, but take it with what you will. I mean, I'm sure we'll find, like I've been saying, you guys have been saying, we will know more in the future. We'll get to see how this all translates, and Supergirl will probably give us more of an idea as well. Figure Drawing saying, it's odd to me Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was 2 hours and 29 minutes. Why didn't Gunn have a longer runtime like that? It's a very good question, because I don't know. Like, John was speculating maybe he felt the pressure to essentially, make a shorter movie so that it was going to give them more screen times, which I don't think James Gunn was under the pressure of doing anything like that. I don't think that was the case. But yeah, the movie does fly by you in a way that maybe to his detriment in some ways. It does leave you wanting more, but that's also both a compliment and not a compliment in the case of this movie. So yeah, I think in hindsight, when we get, maybe we'll find out like how much they left on the cutting room floor when they give us the Blu-ray, the Steelbook. You can already pre-order. In all of those, editions, you usually get deleted scenes. Let's see how many deleted scenes they give us. Maybe we'll get like 5-6 deleted scenes, which we were like, oh, that should have been left in the movie. They why did they take that out? So we'll find out. I certainly think that's something they can improve upon, because the pacing of this movie just felt so breakneck. I feel like they could have had a few more scenes to slow things down, let the people catch up and breathe a little bit. Because while it does feel like a comic book come to life, or a comic book cartoon come to life, like Crypto there, for example, like being such a cute doggy. But like, yeah, it works in an animated context or in a comic book context because you have only 24 pages or half an hour. But when you got a 2-hour long movie, You don't want to literally have the pacing be something where people are like, I need to breathe. Like, this is going too fast. So, and you don't want a movie where you have to see it 2 times to understand it, right? Like, you ideally want a movie that people just get it on the first try. So while I appreciate a movie having a quality of it gets better the more times you see it, I don't want that to be so core to the movies, the understanding of the film, that it becomes detrimental to your first time watching experience. Because there's a lot of people out there who will not see it a second time because they had an issue with it. I do think that's something James Gunn will probably take as feedback from the critics, from the audiences, because it is a theme that comes up a lot in the reviews. And hopefully the next movie, if it is as involved with the number of characters, that it will have a longer runtime. We got to let John Williams rest. He's done enough. Yeah, I know. He's retired practically, but we'll see. I would like to see somebody else. I just think the composers here that James Gunn has worked with, he was worked with before, just weren't up to snuff for a Superman movie. I think James Gunn is learning that Superman is a prestige property. It's one of the top 5 franchises in all of Hollywood. So you got to bring the talent, like Michael Giacchino, if they can find him, bring him in. Ludwig Göransson, who did the Black Panther music and Mandalorian, bring him in. He did the music for Sinners this year. He could be great. Enterprising said, I wanted to see it with my dad, but he hasn't gone back to me today. We hope he does get back to you, man. Like, I want you to be able to see the movie with your dad. I think that would be a fantastic experience, because in this movie, Superman and Pa Kent have a really, cool relationship. So I think you would enjoy that. And your dad would enjoy it. King Dingaling saying that was one of the things I didn't really like. Exactly. I agree with you. I think you're either talking about the runtime or the whole, the Jor-El message about evil Kryptonian parents. Yeah, it was a bit of an M. Night kind of a twist. Unnecessary, much like a lot of M. Night twists have been in recent years. Even he's abandoned that strategy now. Do you think there will be a video game based on the movie with David Cornsweet doing the voice? Good question. They don't have anything currently in the works, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do go in that direction. Certainly, they've monetized the hell out of the movie already with all these cross promotions and stuff, but maybe we will get a video game. I would certainly like to see it. We have gotten a video game in the past for Superman. I don't know if there was nothing with Man of Steel. Maybe it was with Brandon Routh's Superman Returns. Or maybe Superman 4. I forget. They did have a video game for Superman out back in the day, but I don't know. Warner Brothers Games has been reorganizing, and DC is one of their priorities. So maybe they'll make a Superman game. It will take time, because if they haven't already been working on it, it will take a long time to get there. So not anytime soon. You can play around with characters like Peacemaker and Guardians because nobody knows them, Frankie says, but you have to be a bit more careful with someone like Superman. People have strong opinions. Exactly. And I think James Gunn is finding that out. And despite the overwhelmingly positive reception, I think, for example, this isn't the best Superman movie I've ever seen. I still think there's better, like Superman 2 is probably above it. I personally think Man of Steel is better. I know I'm in the minority on that opinion. But even Tom Welling's Superman, I think some people might still be like, some elements of that work better. So yeah, James Gunn has always been known for taking risks, and he is kind of showing a little bit of that indie director approach, that shock, for the sake of shock, kind of elements that he includes in his other previous movies. You do have to have a different sensibility when you're doing Superman. But even so, he's done a fantastic job here. I think some of these are just nitpicks at the end of the day, but Crypto, again, not the Crypto we know from the comics in terms of the breed or anything, but still an iconic part of the movie. Everybody loves Crypto. Liz keeps saying the adoption of white dogs is about to go way up. So there you go. I agree with you. Enterprising, the message is kind of similar. Jor-El even attempted to purge him of his humanity. Yeah, we're gonna get to see more of that. I am live, Steven. I'm just behind on comments. Speaking of which, hello, Steven. PLO saying, how did humans have better tech than the Kryptonian robots and whatever tech was in the Fortress of Solitude to fix the recording? Yeah, that's a good question. It's James Gunn in the promotional tour has mentioned, like, doing Q&As, he's like, don't think about it too hard, some of these things, right? And you can tell that while Zack Snyder's iteration with Man of Steel, with David S. Goyer writing, who's a very, entrenched in sci-fi writing, they tried to have reasoning behind everything, especially the Kryptonian technology and how all of that played out, the costume and the reasons behind it being what it was. You could tell James Gunn hasn't, he hasn't put in that level of reasoning behind some of those decisions, but they can retcon that stuff down the road. I don't know. I think it's a good point. It does bother me too, like Eugene is saying, but I don't know. Like, how could the robots not fix it, but the engineer could? It's a good question. Unfortunately, I can't even answer that question very well because the engineer was basically a tool in this movie. Like, no offense, but I would have liked to see a lot more from the engineer. Like, it feels like she did the best she could, Maria Gabriela de Faria, but she wasn't given a ton to do. So another one of those characters that I feel like we could have used a bit more of. Maybe if they were going to give her more of a storyline with Lex, just develop that a bit further. But again, there was so much to do in this movie, and while people call back to Batman v Superman for like trying to set up a whole cinematic universe in one movie, you could tell James Gunn wasn't trying to do that directly, but by virtue of including so many of these characters and trying to show how lived in this world was, I think the movie loses its focus at times. And for the sake of setups, maybe not direct setups for sequels and spin-offs, but setups for like future opportunities. So yeah. My favorite Superman comic? Good question, Patrick. I think my favorite Superman comic, it feels like All-Star Superman stands out right now because it was the one I was reading most recently. And I do like, the way that story is told with Superman is dying. So, how does he, what live out the rest of his days, giving Lois powers for her birthday, stuff like that. And like, that bus that full of people that he's flying across the world over the pyramids. There's some really good visuals in there. I don't think it translates well to a live action movie, but we'll see. No days off? Well, no, Steven. We're doing a show today primarily because Liz wanted to get her thoughts in, and so I wanted to make sure that she had an opportunity to do that. So that's why we brought her in earlier. And so if you can be kind of rewind, you can see what Liz's thoughts were with spoilers. But yeah, we usually are not live on Sunday. Probably won't be live next Sunday, so don't get used to it. We'll be back on Monday to Friday with John and I tomorrow. Liz is back on a Friday. Movie Spud is here. Hello, all. I saw Superman again today with Mama Spud. There you go, Mama Spud. What did she think? She liked the movie and Movie Spud liked it even more the second time. There you go. Did you vote in the poll in the chat? Because we have a poll going for how many times you have seen it, and it looks like a lot of you guys who are seeing this movie a second time around enjoy it more and more the more you see it. So that's definitely in line with what we have heard from other folks. I love this BuzzFeed stuff, the True Justice and Adorable Puppies, because they basically all they were doing was playing with puppies for this promotional what would you call that activation, whatever they call it. This was a fun video because you could tell like they're just infatuated with puppies, and you could just see just how much James Gunn loves dogs. And yeah, it's just great marketing again. What was it like being on TV? Oh, you're talking about the contest. Okay, figure drawing. So I won a video contest back in high school. That wasn't while I was on TV. I got to do a special Halloween segment on the Today Show as a result of it, because the sponsor for the contest that gave away the cash prizes, they were doing a special Halloween segment, like, science experiments you could do with your kids at home on Halloween. So they invited over the winners of the contest. I won the individual prize. There was a set of winners for the group prize, and then they brought up the runner-up person who came in second for the individual prize. So we were on TV for like 5 minutes. It was fun. I mean, I had to be at the Rockefeller Plaza. They put us up in the Marriott in Times Square for a night the day before. It was in October. It was for Halloween, like I mentioned. So it was cold. There was snow on the ground. Other than that, it was fun. I remember the power was out at my house for that because we had a storm fly through. So I was glad that I got to sleep in an air-conditioned room for one night while the rest of my family didn't. But anyway, it was fun, and that's not the only time I've been on TV. But anyway, it was a fun moment. Manos Time saying I'm going to bed. It's nearly 4 a.m. But I'm at where I'm at. Yeah, you're in France, man. Like, yeah, go to bed. Dude, thank you for stopping by. But here's my final thoughts of the Superman movie. I loved it and was smiling, but bias aside, this movie was a mess, but still enjoyable. Yeah, I think a mess is, that's a word I've seen used quite a bit. Even for people who have loved the movie like you did, you still found it to be very enjoyable. It's not a perfect film, but thank you for your thoughts. We will keep those in mind, and I'm sure you'll get a chance to see it again, and we'll keep talking about it this week. Thank you for stopping by, Manos. Stephen saying, Dan, I am happy. David Zaslav is happy with the results. He picked James and Peter and got the goal done. Yeah, but it's only the beginning, and we will talk about that a little bit more coming up, because we do have the comments from David Zaslav regarding the box office. Enterprising saying, I don't believe that humans had better tech necessarily, talking about the Fortress. it's very possible that even the top experts could have mistranslated it. Yeah, maybe that's how they'll ultimately explain it away. So we'll see about the whole parents twist. And yeah, hopefully you have a good night, good early morning Manos time in France. Merci beaucoup for stopping by the show. Movie Spot saying, I like the music better the second time. The Lex theme is a standout. John Powell's theme is more guitar based, and Fleming's is the more bigger orchestral. Yeah, and I think that's why they brought in two people to do this, because they wanted to kind of lean on both of their strengths. But at the same time, I'm like, if you brought in a higher caliber, movie composer, they could have done the job as a whole. Although, again, Hans Zimmer worked with Junkie XL for Batman v Superman, which to mixed results in my opinion, but nonetheless, I will see it a second time soon, and then hopefully I'll like it as much as you did the second time around, Movie Spud. But yeah, I mean, it's again, movies are subjective, so our mileage will vary with the various aspects of the film. Movie Spud getting a comment from Frankie saying, I like Lex's theme, and the Iggy Pop song at the end was my favorite. Yeah, yep. The punk rocker song in the credits was amazing. I thought that was, again, in line with what James Gunn believes that Superman should be in today's world. Like, he believes in kindness in a world that thinks kindness is old-fashioned, very much punk rock, so matches up perfectly. And PLO, thank you. Yes, that was the video game. Superman Returns on PS2 and Xbox 360. Thank you for pointing that out. I don't know if they're going to do another one, but, they did one in the past, so maybe you can go and find that in the PlayStation Store somewhere. Or I don't know, like GameStop might have a used copy. Yeah, a Movie Spot. There you go. More like I would prefer top 40 punk pop over true punk. Yeah, that's fair. To each their own. I think James Gunn again usually leans into his sensibilities, so that's what he did here as well. I know. Well, we're live today because Liz wanted to get her thoughts in. That's why. And then Liz had to run, so I'm here now. So there you go. It is Superman weekend. It is Superman weekend. So yeah, I'm doing my big one, like Fiona is saying in the chat. I loved how Smallville got Terrence Stamp to play Jor-El. Yeah, that was nice. That nice throwback to the Superman 2. Although Terrence Stamp is certainly, I don't think he's going to be a part of this new universe. If they were to bring in Zod, I don't think Michael Shannon would come back. They're probably going to go in a different direction if they do that. PLO saying, someone asked this on John Campio's show today, because yeah, he did a spoiler chat as well. We did the first one that we did was on Friday. Today's second time we're talking about it in spoilery fashion. Why didn't Lex just use Superman's clone to frame Superman instead of the whole conflict between the two countries scheme? That's a very good point, because I haven't thought of it that way, but you know what? Why not? That's a really good question. I think maybe the reason why is because Ultraman is not really very intelligible. Like he mentions, like, I got the physical part of you in there, but not quite the brain of Superman. He's even dumber than Superman, Lex says. So like the whole brain versus brawn argument. I'm sure that's the reason why, if you were to explain it away. I'm sure James Gunn has been asked about it. If he responds to a comment like that, we'll bring that to you, but that would be my guess. On a puppy Superman related note, Melissa Benoist did a puppy shot a few years ago while Supergirl was on TV. Yeah, that's fair, and it was really cute. And I think we'll be talking about more crypto than ever before. So don't you worry, we got more crypto talk coming up. Movie Spot saying he prepared his mom and let her know it's not like the Christopher Reeve movie that is more fantastical. She called me this morning and said it's Superman Day. That's perfect. And I'm so glad that you guys got to see the movie together. It's always more fun when you get to see a movie with someone rather than just going by yourself and seeing just with strangers. Even not, saying that's not a bad thing at all. A lot of us go to do that sometimes, but I'm glad that you had your mom with you for the viewing of the film. Steven saying, I know the domestic box office is good, but there is panic or worry about international. Yes, and I'm going to save that comment because we'll have that conversation again in a few minutes. So definitely, hold on to that thought. Enterprising saying the good news is that it seems the Rotten Tomatoes is locked in at 82%. Most of the late reviews were positive. That is very much true, because when you look at the number of reviews that they have now, it's about 354. Let me refresh the page. Maybe there's more that have come in since we started the show. 354 still, so 82%. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. 82% is right around where John was thinking, 81%. I thought it was going to be more 85%, which is where it was in the beginning. But that's the third highest rated Superman to date after Superman 1978. And actually Superman 2 was 88%. Superman from 1978 was 86%. So this is the third highest, and certainly the highest in several generations, and the highest of the 21st century. So yeah, and it looks like most of the recent reviews were positive, so the number has kind of stuck where it is. Yeah. Have you met any actors or actresses from a Superman franchise? I personally don't think I have. I'm trying to think back. No names stand out. I know Lizz has met Michael Rosenbaum and a few other actors. So do stick around, because when Lizz is back on Friday, we'll run this question by her, and I think she will mention to you she goes to a lot more conventions than I do. So Lizz has definitely met and got signatures and autographs and photos with a lot of folks. We'll see if we can get Liz to share some of those stories. And it's always fun to hear what are these people like in real life. Movie Spud saying, do you get overtime pay, Dan? No, unfortunately, I pay myself. So hopefully I can get some sleep tonight. That's how I'll pay myself for overtime. That's really the key here, but you guys can send in super chats. I'll take those. Those are always helpful. We are going to launch memberships. I've been trying to get those up this week, but we'll try to get those in this upcoming week. We have a lot of new exclusives planned, like more Tier List Tuesday content. There's going to be more interviews that I'll be doing with other folks that I know in the movie and television industry. That will be the Dan show, and so there'll be other ways for you guys to get involved. But until then, but thank you for checking in on me, Movie Spud. I'm usually here 5 days a week. Don't get used to a Sunday show. Although originally, when the Also Curious channel started, our original showtime used to be once a week, 5 p.m. Eastern time, the Also Curious podcast. So there is some precedence, but we try to keep the weekends free, Monday through Friday. Stick Canning saying, hello again. I brought my keepsakes from the set to the theater. That's awesome, man. I know you were an extra on set, right? So that's awesome, man. And thank you for stopping by. What did you think about the movie? We'd love to hear from you. That is amazing. What were your keepsakes that you brought to the movie theater? I think you were in one of the Cleveland shoots, right? When they were shooting outside with Superman getting arrested, which is amazing. You said you had a fantastic time, so I'd love to hear more about what you thought of Superman now that you've seen it. Ultraman was a live-action Tekken game character. Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. The audience we had was better, laughed more when Mr. Terrific was kicking arse at the military base. The lady in front of me said, Lois needs to stay with him. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Lois is going to do just fine, but Mr. Terrific definitely had one of the better fight sequences in the entire movie. I thought that was a terrific fight sequence and very well shot as well. Enterprising saying the audience score is also higher than both Superman Returns and Man of Steel. Yes, Man of Steel, I feel like was a 75%. So the 93% definitively a higher than that. I forget what their Superman Returns score was. But yes, Canning, I do remember. Yes, you were on that shoot. You were on the set the day that we were talking about it on the show last year. If you guys go back to the summer shows from last July, it was this right here. I think you mentioned you were one of the soldiers in this shot, right, Stick Canning? So I'd love to hear about what you thought for the movie. So and did you just see it once? How many times did you see it? Did you get the popcorn bucket? If you guys are tuning in late, there you go. It's kind of bowled over, but I went to the Regal and I also got some, what did you call those? Drinks holders. There you go. Being higher than Superman Returns is not surprising, though. Yeah, the audience score for Superman, it's a pretty low bar. I get that. Dan, are you doing a similar stream to this for Fantastic Four since the last film before Doomsday? Yes. You know what? I think we will. We will do a special spoiler chat stream for Fantastic Four in a couple of weeks. So maybe that's the next time we'll be live on a Sunday. We'll have to just wait and see. Again, no guarantees, but I do think that the marketing for that movie has been picking up quite significantly. Speaking of which, let's quickly do some quick hits, because then we can talk about more of the Superman box office. And I've saved a bunch of your comments. I know some of you guys are concerned. We have numbers, and I also have some comparisons for how it compares to Man of Steel. But as we dive into the quick hits, let me hit the Bossa Nova music. So we'll do that. And like the quick hits are meant to be, they will be fast, especially today because John is not here to give us an extensive opinion on everything. And of course, with just myself, things will go better. This, by the way, is a clip from Entertainment Weekly where they're just meant to stare in each other's eyes, and David and Rachel are meant to say something good about each other, and you can tell Rachel is doing her thing, but David is just the most genuine person. You just really get the feeling that they got the right person for the job. David Cornsweet is Superman, Clark Kent in real life as much as he is in the movie. Even when he's trying not to give a compliment, he gives a low-key, really amazing compliment. So Yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's terrific. And there's a whole longer version of this video on YouTube, so you guys are welcome to go check that out. It's great. It's great stuff. Speaking of great stuff, speaking of fantastic stuff, Fantastic Four, they put out what I think is the best trailer for this movie, to date. I don't know if you guys came across this, but this trailer here from the Fantastic Four, First Steps, gives us a look at some footage from the movie that we haven't seen before, including, stuff with the Thing and stuff. And they've got this old-timey voiceover in there. You get, more looks at the team and more of their, rocket testing. It's like really, 60s kind of sitcom kind of a trailer. This shot here, where, the Thing and Human Torch are talking, and the Invisible Woman, of course, Sue Storm shows up. They also have a mutt in this one, and we see where Mr. Thing was when he was pulling that ship in previous trailer footage, and he too, of course, loves dogs, so I can't wait to see more of that. The Salazar just returned from their 5th viewing of Superman. Holy cow, in true IMAX. Do you mean like the 70mm IMAX? Okay, Salazar, you gotta tell us, is that the one, did you go to see it in New York, or did you go to see it somewhere else? You gotta let us know in the chat. But thank you for stopping by, man, and yeah, I hope you're enjoying the show. We've been live for like, 2.5 hours already, so be sure to rewind back and check out Lizz's spoiler review. We talked about Supergirl and all the other stuff, the whole parents twist and everything. And yeah, I'm gonna try to bring all your comments in. I know you guys are still talking about it in the chat, Superman, but I just wanted to briefly take a look at Fantastic Four because I thought this was the best trailer they've put out to date. And I don't know why they were holding on to this for so long, because I feel like the movie would have had more hype. We see Herbie, we see more Franklin Richards, more of the Fantastic Car, the spaceship, and I just thought this was brilliant. Like, it's fantastic, and I can't wait to see this movie now. I genuinely am more excited for this movie after having seen this trailer, and I can't wait to see him save clobbering time, because that will be amazing. We also have Superwash in the chat asking, will this movie break $700 million? I do see your comment, and I will bring that into the chat about Superman's box office in a minute. So do stick around. We will get into that right after the quick hits, but let's keep on going with the quick hits, shall we? So, to answer your question, I'll go watch the Fantastic Four in theaters. And if I end up liking it, we'll see if you and I, Frankie, have similar criticisms for it, because it seems like we are, on the same page with Superman. So, Hugo Millie, yeah. My night's been all about the show today. I recorded a podcast with Lizz for her podcast, and then I've been doing the show. And Lizz was here earlier, so it's been going well. I'll try to get some sleep after, because we are back tomorrow again. The more I see F4 trailers, the more excited I get for it. Yeah, movie Spud. It looks better and better, and can't wait to see more of it. Okay, so Salazar, you saw the movie in IMAX, the 70mm IMAX in LA. Interesting story. Sorry, these are quick hits, but I actually used to work at a 70mm IMAX, the last one they had in Connecticut, for like a few weeks. It wasn't like I worked there forever. I just wanted to get the experience of how do you load up the huge platters of 70mm IMAX film and using their traditional film projectors. I've got some photos. I'll see if I can find them for a future show. But damn, IMAX is a special format, and 70mm IMAX is the OG. I can't wait to see if I can go to the Lincoln Square IMAX, which is 70mm IMAX in New York. I want to see the Odyssey in there, which has been entirely shot in IMAX, like for 70mm film. So that'll be interesting. But this is also fun, the Sesame Street crossovers, Just Nice League. You can't save the world alone. Well, no, you can't. And when you have Superman on your side, then I think you're doing things right. I love that. We also have Amazon MGM Studios Colleen Hoover movie Verity with Anne Hathaway and Dakota Johnson, who could be sisters based on the look of it, which is maybe why they hired them. They now have a release date in mind for October 6th of next year. It was previously set for May 15th, but it looks like they pushed it back. So interesting stuff. I don't know if this is from me, this movie, but it will be interesting to see nonetheless. Hugo Millie saying, had two friends fall in love with the DCU through Superman recently, and they preferred Marvel. Something with the fantasy element did it. Yeah, I mean, Lizz is a Marvel fan, and she loves Superman, but Superman is also her favorite superhero. So, not surprised there, but still, Lizz is a big Marvel fan, and we talked about it last week. This new Superman movie is making new DC fans, which was a big part of what they wanted to do. So, job well done for James Gunn and company on that front. And I'm sure we'll get more of that in the future. But yeah, moving on. Enterprising saying, I do believe that Superman's best hope is the domestic box office. If he can cross at least into 400 million before Fantastic Four takes off, all you need is 100 to 150 million from the outside and say good enough. That will be interesting because we will talk about that in a minute, and I'll bring your comment back up. I don't know if it gets to 400 million, but we'll see. I'm not sure if Superman is going to break 700 million either, says PLO, but the second weekend will be interesting to see. Yeah. Fantastic Four does look better though, doesn't it? Like the last trailer, PLO, it looks nice. Yeah, the Lizz podcast went really well. She's trying to she records them ahead of time, so I'm sure she'll let us know when that episode comes out. It's meant to come out, I'm gonna guess, a few weeks from now, so look out for it. We will promote it here, I'm sure. Lex, speaking of which, promoting the hell out of his amazing looks for this movie, looking like a boss. We also, of course, mentioned earlier the town hall that they did with Al Roker. In New York, when they were stopping by, David Cornsweet, Rachel Brosnahan, they actually had a special contest for people to be able to join in the crowd, and they all got their special hypno glasses for Superman. That was fun. Virgin River over on Netflix is already eyeing a season 8 renewal, becoming Netflix's longest running scripted television show, which is interesting. I don't think many shows have lasted beyond 3 or 5 seasons, but for them to be getting an 8th season, I keep getting the show recommended to me because I like watching Gilmore Girls, but I don't know. I would not checked it out other than trailers. Maybe you guys have. Speaking of Superman, though, they did release this clip because now in Fortnite you can play as Superman. So we know this was coming, but it looks nice. He can certainly fly like Superman. He looks the part. He's got the heat vision. I don't know if you guys are fans of Fortnite, but now you can get Superman in there. And as I've been mentioning this whole show, I mean, we got Crypto in the new movie, but we didn't have Crypto in Superman and Lois, and it looks like Elizabeth Tulloch, who played Lois Lane in Superman and Lois, she was so bummed that they didn't get to do that. But hey, I'm sure she's enjoying Crypto in the new movie, which I'm glad that she's still firmly, loving the franchise and has nothing but good things to say about her time as Lois Lane. This also was fun. Hits Radio UK talk about more Superman promotion. It looks like they went on a plane and did some skydiving. I mean, this guy here, he was like, I'm gonna leave it to the professionals because he's like, I don't know how to do this stuff. But everybody else with him, they did their big one with marketing the Superman. Hits Radio Time Superman. More marketing to go. Eugene dropping in the chat with more stuff for the marketing and the box office for Superman. We'll get into that in a second, as I said. But I did want to finish up quick hits before we get to the box office chat for Superman with wishing a belated birthday to Lois Lane. The one day that we were not live was, Lois's birthday. When I say Lois Lane, I mean Rachel Brosnahan specifically. Yesterday was her birthday, so happy birthday, Lois, and happy birthday, Rachel. She's got a tick for these new, action movies as they were, as Superman was. So it looks like she's gonna be sticking around for a long time. And yeah, she looked fantastic in all of her red carpet appearances throughout the world tour, and I'm glad that she's hopefully getting to rest in her own bed for the first time in probably weeks after jetting across the world for all those Superman world tour dates. But happy birthday to Rachel, and well played for this movie. Would like to see more of her in a sequel. I didn't get a ton of her in this movie outside of the first and the third act. She kind of goes missing for parts of the second act because there's so much other stuff going on. But yeah, anyway, that's all the quickest that we got for you guys. Now we get back to talking about more Superman. But yeah, Lincoln Square IMAX still PLO. I do wish they had better seats, because the other day I went to an IMAX in New Jersey to watch F1, and they had the recliner. They weren't full recliners, but they were more those AMC plush, like the red plush seats. They didn't recline all the way back, but it was certainly a lot more comfortable than like the stadium seating that most IMAX screens have. But yeah, maybe they'll update those in the future. But anyway, we'll see. I certainly want to see, because that's my closest 70mm IMAX. So that's where I want to watch the next Nolan movie, Christopher Nolan, The Odyssey. But yeah, let's get back to the Superman chat, shall we? Where's the graphic that I'm looking for? Well, that's my name. Hello, as you can tell. Doing a show by myself right now. Yes, we have opening weekend box office numbers. So let's dive into those. Eugene says he's traveled to the Lincoln Square IMAX for Oppenheimer and Sinners. Let us know what you thought. Did you enjoy that experience? Because I personally haven't been there in years, and I probably won't be there until next year at the earliest. Closest to an open world Superman game in 2025. Yeah, Fortnite, unfortunately, probably is the closest we get to it, because Warner Brothers Games hasn't really figured their stuff out yet. All right, I used to see Al Roker every day on my way to work. PLO says he always said good morning to me. That is awesome, man. Yeah, he's getting up there. He's probably getting close to retiring from the show, but yeah, he was a very nice, laid back person. And I didn't have a very long conversation with him when I was on the Today Show years ago, but I mean, he's a good person. He's also like much not as nearly as tall as some of the other co-hosts, and you can kind of tell that in person. He's a bit more petite, but he's been around for a long time. There we go. Okay. All right, let's keep going with the box office chat though. So guys, we have the box office numbers now. Today on a Sunday, we don't have the actuals as they call it, because the actuals are the numbers that we will finally get when Superman weekend is over tomorrow on Monday. So John and I will talk about the actual. So the numbers might be slightly different once we get the actual numbers, but usually what ends up happening is, they will fluctuate by like 0.5 million either way. So whereas right now we're looking at on Sunday AM update, 123 million is what Superman has made so far on the weekend. Tomorrow, when we get the actuals, it might be slightly higher. So it might be 125.5 or it might be 122.8. Who knows? But generally speaking, the number is going to be around 123. So that's just a domestic weekend number, which is a great start because that means it's starting up higher than Man of Steel's number was, 116 million, which is actually, there's a bit of an asterisk next to that because I'll talk about why in a minute. Because technically Man of Steel, I think, did more. And there's a reason why. It has to do with including and not including the preview day numbers, the way they do it now versus what they used to do back in the 2010s. But 123 million is still the third highest opening weekend of the year at the domestic box office, only behind Minecraft and Lilo and Stitch, which both are practically $1 billion movies. So I guess that bodes well for Superman. Hugo Millie saying, Superman is being underrated in my opinion, just because I feel there's a worry in the air, a bitterness that is making everyone temper expectations. Yeah, well, that's the baggage that DC carries still, and that's the hurdle that Superman has had to overcome. The question is, how well did it do exactly that? And that's really what's going to ultimately come into play when it comes to second weekend, third weekend. Like, how well does it hold up? Because the audience reactions are great. Half of you guys have seen it multiple times. But the question is, well, we are like what you would call maybe super fans. Will the average person go to see it multiple times, right? That's what's going to matter. And like Enterprising was saying, the Superman movie feels so authentic and definitely got that animated series vibe. Eugene says that he actually enjoyed his IMAX experience, so that's good, especially since I was able to get the seats I wanted, middle row seat. That's a great place to get a good seat. I think when we went to see IMAX, F1 in IMAX last week, the seats that I got were all the way in the back and in the center of the row, or slightly off center. So I was really enjoying the experience. And then for Superman, when we went to Regal, we were pretty much in the middle row, from front to back, in the middle of that row. So we were in the most ideal situation. And then they played the wrong movie. We got 5 minutes of Jurassic World, waited for an hour and a half, and then Regal finally, they gave us passes for a free movie and then said, here you go. We got the right movie up for you. So if that wasn't all happening the same day, maybe I would have had an even better experience, because I don't know if that made me a little more cranky. But I did have great seats for when I saw Superman. There was a kid who just kept talking throughout, which was making Fiona mad, which made me mad. So then I was, that also didn't help. But when I see it a second time, I still had a good time with the movie. Maybe I'll have a better experience the second time I see it. And that will go towards the box office, I'm sure. Yeah, it is good news though that Superman has basically made up its box office on its opening weekend, because when I say I should say the budget, because the budget for the movie, if you go off the Ohio filings for the tax credit, was like somewhere in the $300+ million range, which after all the tax credits comes back down to $225 million, which is literally what Man of Steel also had like in 2013. So if that was the number that they needed to make back, I mean, again, that not talking profit, but simply revenue, 123 plus what they've done internationally does make that back. But they also spent like 150 million or possibly more in marketing. So they still have to make back, so that's still a question. And yeah, like Eugene is saying, you got to add the 2.5 to the budget to break even, because you have to account for the marketing budget. You have to account for, all of that stuff, and then figure out how much of that the studio gets to keep versus how much of that the movie theater gets to keep. So let's dive into it in detail. Before I do, I want to bring in some of your comments from earlier. Kevin Davis was saying, If Warner Brothers moves Supergirl away from Toy Story 5 and Minions in 2026, which they are pretty closely packed together, it could make Shazam box office numbers 300 to 350 million. I think you mean if they don't move it, then it might have trouble making more than 300 to 350 million. I think it's too early to tell because much like with Superman, I feel like the marketing for this movie raised expectations because imagine if they didn't do the marketing that they did, this movie might not even open to 100 million. Like some people were saying that it could have opened to on the low end 90 million. So this is clearly, overperforming that number. And on the high end, the expectations were like 120 million. I know we were talking 130 plus with all the social media awareness, but that never translated like linearly to the pre-sales, which usually is a better indicator of how well the weekend is going to go. So that's where 123 is still a good number. It's not the 200 million that the long range tracking told us, but long range tracking is always inaccurate because they're not working off actual ticket sales numbers. So the closer you get to the movie coming out, the better the numbers are. And the last set of projections that we got were kind of looking at 120 million plus maybe. So it's kind of in that range. So not that far off the mark. I don't think it underperformed. It also didn't blow the doors out the box office. It's still the third highest opening, not the second or the first. So yeah, could it have done better? Yes. But I think considering the baggage that DC has had, it's not bad. Superman global box office run prediction is for Kevin now is 450 to 550. We'll see. I mean, I feel like that's still on the low end, but you might not be far off considering it depends on how well the second, third weekend does, Kevin. And we will put that in our list that John has got going. So we will see if you're on the mark. Figure Drawing, for example, is not compelled to see it a second time, but he still thinks it's going to make more than 600 million. Let's see what else you guys were saying. Enterprising was saying he believes that the best hope is the domestic box office because if Fantastic Four takes off, that will probably eat some of Superman's lunch. And so you better hope that Superman's getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 million by the time we get to Fantastic Four in a couple of weeks' time, which is a fair comment. Piolo mentioned earlier, he's not sure if Superman will break $700 million. Yeah, it's hard, man. Given the start that it's got off to and the competition coming its way, it really needs to do well in second and third weekends, even when Fantastic Four comes out. So 700 million is ambitious. I mean, but then again, the Batman did over 700 million, but then again, 700 million, I mean, for Batman is a different conversation because it's Batman. Batman is still DC's most popular character, is one of the most popular superhero characters out there, period. Like next to Spider-Man, he's probably the most popular superhero character. Superman, not as popular, at least not when it comes to box office numbers. Historically speaking, that is. By the way, PLO, Avatar 1 and 2 at the IMAX in Lincoln Square, good choice. That movie probably looked amazing on those screens, both of them. Eugene saying it probably falls short of 700 million. There are countries replacing Superman with F1 and IMAX, only 6.6 million made in China. Yeah, that's a good point. And speaking of which, let's talk about the worldwide numbers because internationally, Superman so far they're saying has powered to 217 million, which includes the domestic number. So you can see they've made like less than 100 million internationally. And they were saying in Deadline that this movie is not expected to do bonkers numbers in China. I mean, Mission Impossible debuted higher, I think, than Superman did, but it's 6.6 million isn't a bad start. It just depends on, again, if it carries into anything significant beyond that. So it doesn't look like, it's going to be doing Aquaman levels of business in China, which I'm sure they would have expected more. And yes, F1 is actually coming back in IMAX in a few theaters, even in the US. I saw F1 in IMAX like 2 weeks after it came out. So, and that movie is literally made for IMAX in a more true fashion that this movie was, quite frankly. And I had a better experience with F1 overall. I think F1 is the better movie if I were to compare that with Superman. Unfortunately, this movie didn't blow me away as much as F1 did. F1 is a cinematic experience. And while this is an experience, I wouldn't put it on the same level as F1. So, but hey, Jurassic World still made like 40 some odd million dollars this weekend, soaring past 500 million. And Lilo and Stitch, it's looking like it's going to cross $1 billion. It's just a matter of time. So good numbers on that front. But 217 million for an opening, a number for the first project in the new DCU, I think is still really fantastic. Terrific, super, whatever you want to call it, whatever superlative you want to use. I think that's a good number. And as you can see here, Superman is in the top 10 in the UK and Mexico and Brazil, China. 6.6 is a good number. Brazil, where they actually stopped by on their tour, 5.9 million, Australia 5.3, France 4.2, Korea, India had 3.8, Spain, and then Japan also. These are big markets, and you can see that it's really good because amongst the top 5, it finished in China in top 5, in the UK, and Mexico, and Germany, and Australia. So that's not bad at all. That's not bad at all. F1 was really good. We have to go see it again. We have to go see that movie again. Holy cow. Hugo Millie saying, I think your second watch through will be so much funnier for you. Chill out and enjoy the journey. Like you tune into season 6 of a TV show. It's just for fun. So much fun. Yeah, I do think so too. I think it will be better for me on a second watch. And that's what everybody keeps saying. So I have nothing but positive expectations for my second watch of Superman. Eugene Enterprising was telling you, yes, that is true. What I am saying though is that it seems on track to make back 225 million. Yeah, I mean, it's already made 217, and these aren't even actuals. So like once we get the final weekend numbers tomorrow, maybe 225 is in the cards, because sometimes the movie number will rise when you get the actual numbers. Because again, today's numbers don't include the actual numbers from Sunday, just the estimates based on where things were at the end of Saturday and the morning of today on Sunday. So tomorrow they'll get actual Sunday numbers through the end of the day, because there's still screenings of Superman happening as we speak today. So maybe the number will rise. Maybe it will go down. Maybe it will be roughly the same. We'll have to just wait and see. And Patrick, I do think, unfortunately, this movie will probably at this rate not get to $1 billion, because you would need to have had like 160 plus million domestic start, 300 plus million worldwide to reasonably get that far. It's possible. It's not impossible. It would have to really do well in the second and third weekend. And I mean, with the audience score being as high as it is, maybe it does. But again, Fantastic Four is coming out soon, so it's got competition. I just don't know if it's going to get there. Enterprising saying, I'm going to run an hopium and stick with my prediction even if it's wrong. Yeah, man, stick by your guns, man. That's what we're doing. James Gunn does, and so should we. And I don't mean that in pardon the pun, but you made a prediction, stick by it. So will we. We'll see in a few weeks' time if those come true or not. Remember, I called for like 800 some odd million. So if 700 million is seeming a shaky number, you got to imagine, I'm sweating it right now. If I bet on that number, I'm probably thinking right now I'm going to be losing that bet. So yeah, we'll see. But how many legs it has box office wise is the key. And let's dive into that a little bit more here. And yeah, miracles are still possible. Although in the movie F1, they do say, have you seen a miracle? It's like, not yet. And I don't know, maybe we haven't seen a miracle yet, but in F1, by the end of that movie, it definitely makes you a believer in miracles. That's for sure. No, Frankie, that's a good point. For a damaged brand, these numbers are not too shabby, and David Zaslav will tell you that, because he's celebrating this as a win for DC at the box office, saying Superman is just the first step. I don't know if that's a nod and a wink at Fantastic Four, and because the Fantastic Four first steps, but I do see what he means, that this is very much the first step for the new DC studios as well as the new DC, the DCU. Let's see what he says specifically. He said, 3 years ago, I hired James Gunn and Peter Safran to reimagine and unify the creative direction of DC under one leadership team by breathing new life and excitement into the most iconic storytelling franchise in the world, or one of the most iconic storytelling franchises in the world. James and Peter's commitment to honoring the legacy of the DC universe while forging something new and enthralling is inspired. That is great. I never pardon a pun. Puns are great. Thank you. I will stop pardoning my puns. Movie Spud. Puns are great, in fact. And F1 is awesome. F1 is awesome. It's a true cinematic experience. And it reminds me of, Top Gun Maverick. I put on Top Gun Maverick earlier just to watch the first 30 minutes of the movie. I'll probably finish it later. But continuing on, David Zaslav, running the victory lap, saying, I remember my first time meeting with James 3 years ago. He spoke about growing up in Missouri and how the characters of the DC universe weren't just stories to him. They were like his family. And his personal bond with these DC heroes was powerful. And I knew that just then, that James was the right person to bring them to life. And his love for the DC world runs deep. Yep. I mean, to James Gunn, these characters do feel like family.
I don't have friends. I got family.
Yeah, just like the Toretto family. I still think for our membership launch coming up soon, we're gonna have the highest tier be called the Toretto family. So if you subscribe to the highest tier, it's gonna be like Bulge, Super Bulge, the Toretto family. So anyway, uh, movie spot saying surely can beat the Smurfs. I know what you did last summer in Eddington. Yeah, I mean none of those movies I think will be number one next weekend. If they are, if any of those three movies takes the top spot at next weekend's box office, then Superman is truly in trouble. Then Superman is in trouble because I think 800 million is going to be firmly off the table at that point. I still believe right now, Nico, and welcome to the chat. But I think if Superman doesn't finish the top of the weekend next weekend, then yeah, forget about 800 million, no less 700 million. Which right now, let me see, it was Mario Faith Warrior saying my prediction is 700 million. You know what, Mario? I'm gonna keep that in our cheat sheet here because that's gonna be what John will have you down for on his spreadsheet. And then when the time is right, in about a month's time, we will talk about whether our predictions came true or not. But speaking of this is the first step, David Zaslav continued on to say this weekend we watched Superman soar as James Gunn's passion and vision came to life on the big screen. Superman is just the first step. Over the next year alone, DC Studios will introduce the film Supergirl and Clayface in theaters and the series Lanterns on HBO Max, which actually comes out before Supergirl next year. All of part of a bold 10-year plan. So we know there's a 10-year plan in place, even though James Gunn and Peter Safran's contracts are not for 10 years, but I'm sure they'll get renewed in a couple of years when they're coming up for renewal, because so far the results are, speaking for themselves. The DC vision is clear, the momentum is real, and I couldn't be more excited for what's ahead. So that's what David Zaslav had to say, clearly saying that, this was a winning movie, a winning start to the new DC universe. In fact, to follow that up, James Gunn also posted about what he thinks about the opening weekend that Superman has had so far, celebrating it as a box office win. And deadline, I do not need to block ads. Clearly the ads are right there. Get your shit together. Anyway, James Gunn celebrates Superman's box office win, saying, I'm incredibly grateful for your enthusiasm, which, you know what, that is all you can ask for as a filmmaker, that people received your movie well and celebrate it. He continued on to say, and I'm grateful for your enthusiasm and the kind words over the past few days. We've had a lot of super in Superman over the years, and I'm happy to have made a movie that focuses more on the man part of the equation, a kind person always looking for those in need. That is exactly, if there's one sentence in which you can define what makes this Superman different from every Superman before, it's that this Superman feels more kind, more down to earth, more grounded, more of the man than the super in the Superman. And I'm so glad that James Gunn is happy. I mean, he's got to be happy because this is only, like David Zaslav said, the start of a new cinematic universe. And I think after working on this movie for 2.5 years, working on establishing the rest of the DCU, and with all these other movies and TV shows in the works, Peacemaker that he is still working on finishing the post-production on, coming out weeks from now, you got to be happy, like, for putting in so much of his time and life, and even skipping vacations or sitting at a hotel while Jennifer Holland's like, I'd rather you be my husband than be writing Peacemaker right now. He was like, I'm going to make the sacrifice. And then right now you got to imagine that he's feeling happy that it's all paying off for him, which is great. Variety saying marketing for Superman is only 100 million. That's a good point, Nico. I did read that earlier, but I don't, they have good sources. I don't know if I believe that. I mean, look, there's all kinds of ways they could have, saved money, because a lot of what they did was social media viral marketing, which is a lot cheaper than the traditional ways of doing things. So I wouldn't say that's, outside of the realm of possibility that they did do all of the stuff that they have done with just 100 million. Still, 100 million is quite significant. I mean, and the tax credits and some of the crossovers that they do with other brands, the brands are paying them to do the work. It's not the other way around. So it's believable. If it is 100 million, then I mean, that is a stroke of genius to only have spent like less than 350 million. And then that would mean that Superman movie could break even at what, like 500 million, which is what one of you guys were saying is basically where you see this movie ending up at right now. So that's good. If it's only 100 million in marketing, that's even better than what we were expecting, like 150 to 200 million. So yeah, that's good. That's good news. They're going to do a Once Upon a Time sequel with Brad Pitt as Cliff Booth. It will be a Netflix movie. Yes, I know, Patrick. We actually talked about that. Brad Pitt is working on that next, and David Fincher is directing, right? So that looks interesting on a Tarantino script. Eugene saying, I saw F1 in IMAX and Dolby because of the sound. I really enjoyed it more in Dolby. Dolby sound is the best sound in the business. Agreed. So much more immersive. It was just really loud. Yeah, IMAX could leave you with your ears popped. When I saw Dunkirk in IMAX, I was like, I don't know if I can drive back home just yet. I need to let my ears recover. So yeah, but the Dolby is really, really good. Hugo saying, I think the mask character would be a nice fit in this world if possible. I genuinely think it could work in a story set decades before. Who are you talking about the mask character? Because I don't know if you're referring to somebody specific, but do tell us more. Enterprising saying, if that's true, that's actually good news. That $100 million. That's a lot less money than we thought they spent. And yeah, New York Times saying 125. So there you go. The range will vary because these are not coming from the studio themselves. The studios will never tell you, the exact number. So we just got to estimate. I mean, these outlets have sources within the industry, so they can get some good estimates, but even they probably don't get the actual numbers because, there's a funny thing called, Hollywood accounting. It's if there's miracles happening anywhere, it's with Hollywood accountants. So that's probably why the number we will see. But even if it's 125 million, that's still a good number. That's still reasonably, cheap for a movie of this scale, a big box office tentpole production, like they call it. So I would still say that's a positive. If it was like 200 million, that would be like, oh no, they need to make a lot more money to break even. And I know the reports on Friday were that Warner Brothers just wants it to make 500 million or more. And James Gunn has dispelled the idea that it needs to make at least 700 to be successful. So I'm sure they'll take it. But speaking on which, Steven asking, do you think it will reach 800 to 900 million at the box office? I don't think so. I think right now it's looking more likely that 700 is probably the aspirational number. But again, a lot of it will depend on where this movie sits on its second weekend. Because right now where we are at, it's not off to a high enough of a start. And not only that, because it's off to a really good start, but it's just movies today at the box office don't do as well. And they don't have as much staying power as they used to, because roughly 20% of the people who used to go to the movies before the pandemic still haven't returned to those kind of movie-going habits. People just stay at home a lot more. And I know all of you guys probably know people in your lives who do that. They're not moviegoers the way they used to be, and people's viewing habits have changed. So like even Minecraft couldn't quite cross the $1 billion mark, right? Like it finished at 950 something. Lilo and Stitch will do it, but Lilo and Stitch came out in the summer months, so I think that helped it. And Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness got so close and didn't cross the mark. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 currently holds the record for James Gunn as the highest grossing movie of his career. I forget the exact number. I think it was like 800 something million. So I don't even know if Superman is going to be the highest, grossing movie of James Gunn's career. But we'll see. We will see. I personally would say no to that right now, Steven, but maybe the second weekend drop will be little to nothing. So then, our hopes will go up again. What makes more, FF4 or Superman? That's a good question, Supervash. And I think you actually asked earlier, do you think it will break 700 million? 700 million, I think still potentially in the works. Eugene saying it falls short of it, but I still have hope that it does do that. Will it make more than Fantastic Four? I think right now Fantastic Four makes less, because even with all the hype behind Superman, if it can't get to 700 million or 800 million, then I think Fantastic Four, unless it's really, really good, which it could be, it might be even better than Superman. Who knows? We'll find out in a couple of weeks. But unless it's a better movie, I don't think so. But here's the thing. The Marvel floor is still higher than the DC floor. So if Fantastic Four is a better movie than Superman, then yes, it can make more money than Superman. But if it's just about as good, then I think it probably makes less. Because again, people still remember all the bad Fantastic Four movies. The MCU isn't like riding high the way it used to be around Endgame. Although Thunderbolts was a good movie, but it's been a while since that came out. And, it made Superman has made pretty much most of what Thunderbolts made in its entire theatrical run in its opening weekend alone. So I don't know. Yeah, but it is good in general, Patrick, that Superman is doing great. Okay, so I don't know if, Jim Carrey's mask could fit into this. And actually, it's funny that you bring it up. I think is because you might have seen this, that I saw this earlier. Somebody made a poster, a Superman, one of those like rainbow posters, and put Jim Carrey in it, which was really hilarious. I don't know if I pulled it in here somewhere, but Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about, Hugo, or I think you know what I'm talking about. But somebody did put Jim Carrey in one of those Superman posters. Yeah, this universe is certainly wacky enough that you could fit a mask in there, but I don't know if they're thinking about doing that anytime soon. Yeah, the predictions will be all over the place for Fantastic Four because it's kind of hard these days to predict that. Superman, they couldn't, the high end of the range was 200 million, the low end was 90 million. It comes in at 123, and we'll find out the exact number tomorrow. But we don't even know. I think the numbers for Fantastic Four, actually the long-term numbers were lower than Superman. So if the trend holds, then it will probably debut to maybe 100 million. Given that Superman has come in at so high with 123, maybe that gives Fantastic Four more of a chance at making more money, but we'll have to see. I don't. It's a hard question for me to answer today. Maybe tomorrow when John is on the show, I'll see what he thinks, and we'll get his opinion on it. Yeah, and unless it's horrible, like Enterprising is saying, it's gonna do well. How well, we'll find out this week. They'll have more accurate numbers based on how it's tracking at the box office. Yeah, and that's the biggest problem, movie Spud. The fact that nowadays, a few weeks after the movies come out, even the ones that are making close to $1 billion, they're on streaming within 6 weeks. Like, the shorter theatrical window is killing these movies' earning potential. Like, Top Gun Maverick wouldn't have made the $1.5 billion and be the highest grossing movie when it came out of that year if it wasn't in movie theater for 6 months, and then it took months after that for it to show up on streaming. We need to get back to that way of doing things. I remember back only a few years ago, we'll have to wait like a year and a half, 2 years to see some movies come on streaming because they would be in theaters, then they will be on DVD. You can rent it. You can even get it on digital, but it then took months after that before it even landed on streaming. I think by shortening that window, they've created the problem where movies just don't make as much money in general anymore. There's fewer billion dollar movies, and because fewer people are going to see them, that also further adds to the problem. So yeah, exactly, Frankie. You used to go almost every week before the pandemic. Now you probably go 2 to 3 times a year. Like, that's a huge difference. What is that? Like, you used to go, let's say, 40 weeks a year. Now you go maybe 3 times. That's a huge drop. You go to like less than 10% the amount of times to the movies that you used to go. That's a huge difference. That's a lot of money that these movies are not making because, like, Frankie and many others like you and I don't go to the movies as often. That's a problem that they have to address. Hollywood in general, not just Disney, not just Warner Brothers. David Zaslav forgot about Peacemaker. Yeah, I know. I think he did. Subhavashi did not even mention it, but I'm sure he knows about it, and I'm sure he'll be reminded of it because James Gunn is going to be at Comic-Con in a couple of weeks. We'll be talking about it. John Cena and the rest of the cast will be there, so I'm sure he will mention it. I'm sure he knows. It's funny he didn't mention it here. Although Peacemaker wasn't Superman, so I'm sure if he saw it, he was. Who was that guy on the news in the movie? Was that Peacemaker? Have I seen this dude before? I mean, maybe he did it because he also can't see John Cena. Maybe that's the problem with David Zaslav. He just didn't see him. That's why he forgot him. So, Enterprising saying, I truly believe domestic will give the movie legs for a while. Yeah, this movie so far has made more money domestically than internationally, and that trend might continue. Because it's also Superman. Like, Superman is a very American character at heart. True justice in the American way. Even though now they call it A Better Tomorrow, but still very much that's part of his identity. And forget the whole woke garbage and all that stuff that's going on, and people who have problems with him being an immigrant. Which I'm like, tell me you don't know about Superman without telling me you don't know about Superman. But still, yeah. We all have hopes and dreams for Nico and Enterprising. We all hope that these movies do well. Fantastic Four and Superman, a rising tide lifts all boats. That's the goal here. The MCU is still more popular in foreign markets because they have 30 movies of experience that people have an expectation. DC, on the other hand, you go back 30 movies, it's a very choppy ride. So that's probably why Fantastic Four, if it's as good as Superman, maybe has a higher ceiling that Superman does. I'm not willing to commit to that yet. I need to see more numbers from Fantastic Four projections, but maybe those numbers will rise in the coming weeks, and maybe Superman will drop, or maybe not. We'll see. Angelica saying, honestly, what I hate the most about Warner Brothers is short theatrical releases. Yeah, I mentioned earlier when Lizz was on the show, Disney tends to leave their movies in theaters longer than Warner Brothers does, or at least they don't put them on streaming as fast as Warner Brothers does. So that is one area where I think Warner Brothers has realized, and hopefully continues to realize, that they need to leave these bigger movies in theaters longer and not put them on streaming as quickly as they do, because that will only lead them to making more money. Because once it's on streaming, it kills the theatrical potential, but it also, makes the movie. People are like, sure, they're watching it at home, but you got to build the anticipation. The longer it's in theaters exclusively, the more money, the more people will be excited to see it at home, and then the less they will be, trained to be like, I can wait to see it at home. Like, wait, give it a few weeks. Like, I don't need to see it tomorrow. Like, that's the thing, because they have to then spend more money to market it, to make it a must-see event, and then they make less money when the movie comes out on streaming faster. Like, pick a lane, like you're only hurting your own business. That's the thing. I do hope they extend the window in the enterprising exactly for that reason, because then they can make more money. But okay, let's finish up the show by talking more about like how Superman, like I promised you guys at the beginning, how this compares to Man of Steel, right? So I've had this screen up for a little while. The worldwide opening weekend box office so far until Monday, the numbers that we have, which will probably change a little bit because the actuals, they call them, will come out. So far, 122 million domestic, 95 million worldwide. That totals out to 217 million. Now, I wanted to compare this to what we saw from essentially Man of Steel, right? So that, because that's really the key here. So far, I mean, this movie's only been out for 4 days. Now you can see there, July 10th, the Thursday numbers were 22.5 million. That includes 2.5 million roughly from the Tuesday Amazon Prime premiere screenings. So now the thing here is that Friday number, July 11th, that's 56 million. That includes the preview day numbers, because technically preview day is like day 0. It's not really counting as day 1. You can see there, day 1 is actually Friday, the way they count it. So what they're looking at here is that Superman did 56 million on Friday. That is inclusive of the 22.5 million it made on Thursday and Tuesday. So if you subtract that, Superman actually made like roughly 33.5 million on Friday alone, and then 37 million on Saturday, and then 28.2 on Sunday, which usually you see a bit of a drop for most movies, with a few exceptions, but most movies tend to drop on Sunday from their Saturday number. Saturday is usually the biggest day. So all in all, it's 122 million domestic. Worldwide, we won't get into, because worldwide it's a lot more complicated. So we're just going to compare the domestic numbers for opening weekend right now. Now, here's the thing. This is not how they used to do it in the past, right? So, and even though this has a better word of mouth than, Man of Steel did, Man of Steel did actually, back then, when Man of Steel came out, they used to count the box office differently. Let me actually see if I can scroll up a little bit and get to the exact page. So here we go. Now, Man of Steel, of course, already, done and dusted. It already made its money a long time ago, 12 years ago. But back then, this is something Deadline pointed out in their article earlier, and I want to dig into this because I think when you compare Man of Steel to Superman, which is a good comparison because that was the last superhero movie that was just focused on Superman solo. So here's where we were at with that, right? Back when Man of Steel came out, they did do Thursday previews, but the Thursday previews started later in the day. Like nowadays, Thursday preview, you can go see it in the morning. But back when Man of Steel came out, the Thursday preview started at like 3:00 in the afternoon. And they had fewer screenings because of that. So a couple of screenings less. They didn't have Tuesday previews. So back in 2013, Man of Steel made $12 million in its previews on Thursday. And here's the kicker. Back in 2013, they wouldn't count the preview day as part of your Friday. So remember I mentioned before that in the numbers for Superman, that 56 million from Friday includes 22.5 from Thursday and Tuesday. So the actual Friday number was like 33.5 roughly. Well, back in the day with Man of Steel actually made 44 million on Friday. That does not include the 12 million. So it's higher than what Superman did. Plus, if you add the 12 million in, that's still basically equivalent to the 56 million, roughly the same, slightly less, but roughly the same as what Superman did. So on par if you include the Thursday preview for Man of Steel. Then on its Saturday, it made 36.3 million, which compared to Superman, it made 37.7. So Superman made more than Man of Steel on its Saturday. Then on Sunday, Man of Steel made 36.2 million, which compared to Superman, again, the numbers we have of Superman right now are not the actual, so the 28.2 million might go up. But as of right now, Superman made less money on its opening weekend Sunday than Man of Steel did, which it did 36.2 29 million. So we'll have to wait and see if that number improves for Superman, which right now is sitting at 28.2 million. About, what is that, like 8 million less than Man of Steel. Now, the opening weekend for Man of Steel, as a result of them not counting the previews, was 116.9 million. 116.6 million, I should say. Now that 116.6 million, if you add in the 12 million, which like Superman Today did, because Warner Brothers now counts their previews. So you're looking at Man of Steel did 12 million put 116. It did basically 120. I'm putting it in the wrong place. 128 million roughly. That's back in 2013, right? 128 million if you include the Thursday numbers, which the official tally does not. But I'm going to do it here because if you want to do a true apples to apples comparison, that's what it would be. And you can see here that for, let me zoom in a little bit, for Superman so far, we're looking at 123 million, right? That includes the Thursday number. Now, if you subtract the Thursday number, the 22.5 million from the 122 million that they're quoting here in the numbers, do the math for me, guys. 122 million minus 22.5 from Thursday, you're looking at 99.5 million. So the actual 3-day weekend for Superman minus the preview is slightly short of 100 million. Maybe that number will be higher tomorrow because we will have the actuals. But based on what we have on Sunday, this is the comparison, right? So again, some of the other numbers I wanted to point out. Opening day for Man of Steel was 56. What was it? It was 40. Oh, right here, 44 million for opening day. And if you include the previews, it did 56 million. Man of Steel did. Without the previews, it did 44 million. With Superman, with previews, it did 56 million, right? 56 million. And then without the previews, it did 33.5. And again, I'm kind of rounding off a few numbers here, but you see the comparisons. This is where the two movies stand in terms of just, breaking down the box office. And like I mentioned, opening day for Warner Brothers in circa 2025 includes the preview days. And there's more preview screening than there used to be for Man of Steel. So technically, with fewer preview day screenings for Man of Steel, and also not including the previews in its opening weekend, in some respects, Man of Steel actually outperformed Superman, which is interesting to say the least, because an opening weekend alone, Man of Steel, a lower rated movie. I think it's more a reflection of the time, because back then superhero movies just made more money and more people went to see superhero movies than they do today, like on movies in general. And yeah, that's probably going to play a bigger role in the long-term prospects of Superman, because Man of Steel finished at like 671 million roughly. Will Superman get that far, right? Like that's the key here. And whereas back in the day, Warner Brothers distributed the movie, today DC Studios is producing the movie. Then I think Warner Brothers are still distributing it, but it's produced by DC Studios. Back then, Warner Brothers Pictures made the movie. So from a distribution perspective, there are similarities. It's still the same company doing that. But yeah, I mean, they didn't have Kurt Russell. Yeah, exactly. I think there was more star power in Man of Steel. So, super wash. But Nico saying, what's worldwide weekend of Man of Steel? Worldwide weekend for Man of Steel. Let's take a look real quick. The opening weekend worldwide was. I'm going to see if I can find that here. Opening weekend. They actually had a number here. Weekend box office, 128 million. That's a domestic number. To do a little bit of scrolling here. Weekend box office. I'd have to find it. Let me see. I think they have it one of these numbers. Worldwide, domestic. I don't know. Do this separate? International. Okay, there we go. So they do break this down. Cumulative. Okay. Worldwide box office. I'll have to find that worldwide number for Superman. Let me see if I can find that. Or for Man of Steel, I should say. I'll dig that up for you guys. But let me get back to this screen because these numbers are confusing. Superman will have the same fate as Joker. I don't know. Joker made quite. Joker made $1 billion. If you're talking about the first Joker made $1 billion. I don't think this Superman makes $1 billion. So that's, I don't think in the cards. But let's see. I'm doing this right in front of you guys' eyes, and let's find out the opening weekend worldwide for Man of Steel, because that's a good point of comparison. The opening weekend worldwide for Man of Steel was release date. It also had a more staggered release, so these numbers are pretty spread out. 116 opening weekend. I'll have to, somebody let me know in the chat. Maybe you guys found it before I did. There we go. But Joel is here. Thank you, Joel. 197. Thank you for the save. I'm trying to go looking for these numbers. I unfortunately did not have that number ready to go. So 197 million worldwide opening weekend. So Man of Steel did even less internationally in opening weekend than Superman is doing. So I can, on that front, that is really good. That's a good thing. So let's put that in our comparison document, shall we? Let's see. So worldwide, opening weekend was 197 for Man of Steel. That's the worldwide number. For so far, for Superman, the worldwide number is 217 million. So that's actually, on that front, you can see Superman is performing better internationally than Man of Steel did. So on that front, that's a positive. I think that's a good number. Joel asking if Superman doesn't make 600 million, we're not getting Superman 2. Warner Brothers will force Batman and make world's finest. Well, if you were, I don't know if you were there earlier in the show, we were talking about James Gunn responded to a question, one of the million pages that I've had to go through today. He was asking, when does Superman 2 come out? James Gunn said, define Superman 2 with air quotes. So I don't know. Maybe that's what their plan already is, Joel. Maybe that's what they're doing already. So yeah, and we do all hope for Superman's success, but I did want to make the comparison because I think it's fair to do so. That was the last solo Superman movie that we got, was Man of Steel in 2013. And these are the comparisons. An opening day, without including the previews, Superman did 33.5 just on Friday. If you include opening day, Friday numbers, Thursday and Tuesday numbers for Superman, it did 56 million. Man of Steel did the exact same, pretty much 56 million, but it had a bigger it had a bigger Friday if you don't count the Thursday numbers. But Superman had a bigger preview day on Thursday and Tuesday than it did on Friday. So, but at the end, the opening day kind of leveled out. Both of them did 56, where Man of Steel seemingly outperformed Superman, at least without getting the actuals. Is the rest of the weekend Man of Steel made more money than Superman so far has. But you can also say that maybe that's something to do with how Man of Steel was received. People were not quite happy with Man of Steel at the end of the day. At least the majority of them weren't. And that has led to Superman carrying some of that baggage. So therefore, so far, the opening weekend for Man of Steel worldwide, though, still underperforming what Superman has gotten up to. So it looks like the international market came in stronger for Superman, despite China maybe not doing as well as people wanted it to. So yeah, it's a good comparison. I think when you get into the details, there are some nuances here and there. We'll do this comparison again tomorrow when we actually have the actuals from the movie, when we get the Monday numbers, and John and I will talk about those and again see how it compares to Man of Steel. The best thing is that Man of Steel had an all-star cast, Oscar winners, Academy Award nominees. Superman mostly had up-and-comers and TV actors. That's true. You don't have Kevin Costner. You don't have Diane Lane. You don't have who was his Kryptonian dad? Russell Crowe, Oscar-winning actor. You don't have any of those three big names. You had Bradley Cooper, but really more just a cameo. Nicholas Hoult is the most well-known, movie actor out of the bunch at the core cast. Eddie Gattegi, most people don't know who he is. Nathan Fillion, people know, but he's not like a big movie star. He's a big TV star. Richard Brosnahan, big TV star, not a movie star as of yet. Maybe this will turn her into a movie star. I think David Cornsweet was a runaway hit as an actor, perfectly cast as Superman. People definitely like him more in general as Superman than maybe even Henry Cavill. That's a general opinion. I personally still love Henry Cavill as Superman. I also love David as Superman. So, you're right. There's definitely, less of that star power, but also we live in a different movie landscape. Today, movies in general don't make as much money as they used to, but we'll have to see. Yeah, I mean, they did kind of more or less perform the same, Joel. So yes, people will make that comparison more and more, but ultimately, if you look at the final box office for Man of Steel, it finished up at 670, just under 671. So it finished at 291 domestic, 379 international, still making a lot more money internationally than it did domestically. Is Zack Snyder laughing right now? I don't know if he is laughing per se. He will be saying, "Look, my movie did roughly the same as this one," but it's kind of hard to predict where things will go from here for Superman. I think Superman will do well at the second weekend because it's got a much higher audience score. So the word of mouth will be more positive, and the critics like it a lot more. And Man of Steel, actually, the budget for Man of Steel, interesting that you bring it up. Officially, the budget for Man of Steel was pretty much the same, $225 million. You look at it here, scroll up, the budget for the movie was quoted at, if you look at the summary numbers, it's $225 million. So by that measure, Man of Steel actually 3x'd its production budget. And then if you look at Superman, so far from what they've said, Superman's budget is literally the same as Man of Steel, 225. Now, so far, it hasn't, you can't say 3x'd anything because it's only opening weekend for Superman. So we'll see over the course of its run with the same budget. And if it does the same as Man of Steel, it will be on par with Man of Steel, which made 670 million. So far, Superman has gone off to roughly the same start as Man of Steel with 217 million, whereas Man of Steel did 197 million. So yeah, it's not like blowing Man of Steel out of the water, but there's probably a few different reasons for that, and John and I can talk about it in more detail tomorrow. And Christopher Nolan also, yes, was attached to Man of Steel as one of the writers and producers, so I'm sure that helped as well. And Zack Snyder also, was probably seen more in a positive light because he had just done Watchmen. I think today he's a more controversial name because of all the movies he's made since then, including what he's been doing on Netflix recently, which, what was that stuff? Rebel Moon? Yeah, Rebel Moon. Terrible movies. Not his best work. But I did love Man of Steel. So I don't know. I still prefer Man of Steel personally to Superman, but I've only seen Superman once. I've seen Man of Steel like a million times. So I think for me, the Superman will grow on me more. I prefer David Cornsweet's Superman to Henry Cavill because he's more like your traditional comic book Superman. I think that's one area where I think is better. I also think Man of Steel was a more focused story because it was an origin story, and that's where Superman is not the same thing. Superman is not an origin story at all. It's really a universe that's already established, so it's hard to make that comparison. It's more apples to oranges there. So we'll see how things change over time. But yeah, adjusting for inflation, Joel, you're right. If you adjust for inflation, Man of Steel did do more. Actually, I think they do adjust for inflation on the numbers. I'll see if I can, find a better, more inflation-adjusted comparison tomorrow. I'd have to dig in through these numbers. We'll see if we can come up with a chart. But yeah, Man of Steel also, you have the money that it made in post-theatrical, like how much money did it make, in home theaters and people buying it on DVD. So yeah, we can dive into this in a lot of detail in the weeks to come. Right now, I think the comparison's simple. Opening weekend alone, Superman and Man of Steel sort of, are on par as of right now. If you account for inflation, Man of Steel probably is a bit ahead, but inflation is also an imperfect science. There's a lot more that goes into, how people were going to see the movies in 2013. What are they doing with movies in 2025? DC also as a brand had a different reputation coming off the Dark Knight trilogy, like you guys were saying back in 2013. And today, DC, the recent history is very different. So yeah, exactly. Superhero fatigue is something to account for. There's a million other things you can account for. There's more streaming today. Netflix was the only streaming service really back in 2013. Today you have Netflix and 5 other options, including HBO Max and Disney Plus and Paramount Plus, Peacock, you name it. There's like a million of them. So not as many people going to the movie theaters as they used to. Superhero movies were just more in vogue back then. I think people are starting to really be more selective with the superhero movies they go to see today. So yeah, there's a million different things that would have played into that. But at least on the surface, the numbers are pretty similar. That's what you can take away from it right now. We'll continue to compare. Other people will compare for us, and we'll talk about it more in the weeks to come. So yeah, I have not seen all of them. All-Star Superman. That's one thing that I probably have on my list of things to do. I'll ask John tomorrow, though, Patrick, if he has seen it. John is much more of a fan of the animated movies than I am, so I'm sure if you put the question to John, he will probably have a better answer for you. Yeah, I think watching Man of Steel again, Movie Spud, is probably a good idea to kind of give you a comparison. See if you still like it or don't like it more. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Joel saying you got to add the expenses as well when adjusting for inflation. People forget that part. Exactly. Although I do think they had a significant set of tax breaks for Man of Steel as well, and a lot of obviously product placement, Sears, IHOP, 7-Eleven, all the different things that blew up and crashed into in that movie. So yeah. Steven saying on one day when you and Fiona come to California, I will invite you out to eat. You know what, Steven? That sounds fantastic. And I would love to, take you up on that invite. So I'll hold you to that. You know what? And we were out that way last year. We were in the Bay Area. So I think the next stop will be probably getting to San Diego, maybe LA. But, we can always drive up to see you, even if you're not in the city where you are at. But until then, until we get a chance to do that, until tomorrow, I'm going to give my voice a bit of a rest. We have been live for 3.5 hours. Thank you so much for sticking around and stopping by and chiming in the live chat. We appreciate you guys so much. Don't forget to check out Lizz's podcast. She was on the show earlier today. Try Not to Curse. You can sign up for that and listen to it on Spotify. It's free to listen. And then if you want to listen to John's review, John and his friends did a review for Superman on the Cool Kids Movie Reviews channel on YouTube. They did that yesterday, so be sure to check that out. Of course, John and Fiona were on the channel doing the review on Friday, and then Lizz was on the show earlier today doing our spoiler review. So thank you so much for stopping by. And Fiona's happy that we were getting an invite to dinner with Steven. We look forward to it whenever we get a chance to go out to LA or wherever you are, Steven. I don't know if you're in LA or whichever part of the state you are in. California is a big state. We look forward to that dinner invite. Enterprising saying people will see Supergirl just to see Momoa's Lobo. Yeah, that's a big reason why. And I can't wait for that myself. That's a big reason why I'm going to go see it. So with that, guys, thank you again for stopping by. And it's a special Sunday show. It went longer than the Friday show. That's okay, though, because tomorrow John will be back and he will do more of the talking so I can rest my voice. We hit 3,000 subscribers earlier today. Thank you so much for helping us get that far, because it's because of you guys that we made it this far, and it's because of you that we will keep going further. So we appreciate you. We love that you guys are here live. We love that you get in the comments. We do have some of your fan comments saved up from Friday's show that we'll bring in to respond to tomorrow. We just kept running out of time, yes, on Friday's show and on today's show. But still, if you're watching and you enjoyed the show, if you're watching after the fact, hit that like button, hit subscribe like Fiona was telling you all to do. We do appreciate it. And hit the notification bell so you know when we go live, because tomorrow John and I will be back Monday through Friday, DCU Daily. We've got a lot more to talk about with Superman. We'll have the final numbers from Superman's opening weekend box office. Lots more beyond that. Until then, guys, I will see you tomorrow. And we hope that you guys, as Superman would tell you, as James Gunn would tell you, as even Neil deGrasse Tyson, who officially designated the planet Krypton, where Superman is from, will tell you, don't forget to look. It's
another project that's been blessed from the beginning.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see chorus.
Right there.
Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
Now you want to get nuts?
Let's get nuts. Here we go.
Victory mine. Ask me how am I doing? I'm telling you, really, I'm doing sublime. I never wait in a stewardess line. I just go do it. I'm moving my time. Really had nothing to do with it. How am I moving? I'm moving like you want to shine. Follow my lead. Don't listen to lies. I had to put me all in the line. That's why I know that victory's mine.
I prefer Jared Leto.
Hunka hunka.